This meeting of the Montgomery County School Board to order at 7 p.m. on January 7th, 2020. Because this is an organizational meeting of the board, I will preside temporarily until the board chair is elected. Now I ask that you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. All right. Our next item is the adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We now have an agenda. And the first piece on the agenda are my comments. So first, I'd like to wish everyone a Happy New Year and welcome back, and hope everyone had a restful and relaxing holiday season. I'd also like to welcome Sue Cass to our school board for her first meeting. It's great to have you on board here. Since our last meeting, just a lot of things have occurred in terms of school activities. I got to many of the school activities right before our holiday break, and a lot of fun things that were happening during that time. We started school back yesterday for one day, and we had our third inclement weather day today. But really, it was first snow day was today. The others were, I guess, ice days per se. And so we'll get back in the swing of things tomorrow. If you haven't heard, we've already announced a 2-hour delay for tomorrow. Okay? And so we'll get things going. We're looking forward to this semester and moving forward. All right. Next is the reorganization of the school board. Our next order of business is the election of the board chair. Anyone on the board may nominate another board member for the chair. A nomination does not require a second. Once nominations are complete, I will ask for a motion to close nominations. This motion must be seconded and voted on by the board. We will then vote on each nominee in the order of their nomination. Do I have a nomination for the chair of the Montgomery County School Board?
Dr. Meyer and current fellow board members, I'd like to nominate Gunan Karan for chair for this upcoming year.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mrs. Karan as board chair. Are there any other nominations? Okay, not hearing any. May I have a motion to close nominations?
Motion to close nominations.
Okay, I have a motion to close. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we will now vote on the nominee. Our first nominee and only nominee is Ms. Karan. All those in favor of Ms. Karan for chair of the board, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. The ayes have it, and Ms. Karan is elected chair of the Montgomery County School Board for 2020. Ms. Karan, I now turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer.
You're welcome.
And thank you, fellow board members. It's my honor and privilege to serve once again to you, and I'm excited and looking forward to a wonderful school year. Happy New Year to all the board members and the audience, everyone. And welcome, Sue Cass on board. We are excited to work with you. And appreciate trust, and I'm looking forward to serving you as best as my abilities as always. Next order of the items will be election of a vice chair, and that's the continuation of the organization of our school board. As with the election of the board chair, anyone on the board may nominate another board member. A nomination does not require a second. Once nominations are complete, I will ask for a motion to close the nominations. This motion must be seconded and voted on by the board. We will then vote on each nominee in the order of their nomination. May I have a May I have a nomination for Vice Chair of Montgomery County School Board?
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Ms. Marty Graham for Vice Chair of the School Board.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? By hearing none, may I have a motion to close the nominations?
Second. Motion to close.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Any opposed? Now we have to vote on the nominee. Our first and only nominee is Ms. Marty Graham. All those in favor for Ms. Marty Graham for a Vice Chair of the Board, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
We have a nomination. Carries and Ms. Graham is our Vice Chair. Looking forward to working with you, Ms. Graham. Now, next, our order of the item is appointing our board clerk. May I have a motion to appoint Brenda Clerk as the clerk of the board? Brenda Drake as the clerk of the board. I just, we brought it all together because she is amazing one person that does also.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have Ms. Clerk as the Montgomery County Board Clerk for
Mr.
2020.
Ms. Drake.
I keep saying that. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I'm thinking. Ms. Drake is our clerk for the school board for 2020. I will fix that in my mind. The next one, appointing deputy clerks for Montgomery County School Board. May I have a motion to appoint Ms. Becky Shanks and Dr. Mark Meyer as deputy clerks of the Montgomery County School Board?
So moved. I'm sorry.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Becky Shanks and Dr. Meyer are appointed deputy clerks of the board for 2020. Next item is adoption of resolution affirming officers of the county school board. I need a motion to adopt a resolution affirming our officers as Ms. Graham as Ms. Curran as a board chair, and Ms. Graham as a vice chair, and Ms. Drake as a clerk, Ms. Shanks as deputy clerk, and Dr. Meyer as deputy clerk.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any discussions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We adopt a resolution affirming our officers. Next one is our board committee appointments. Historically, the board chair has made appointments or sought volunteers for other committees and boards. This year's committee appointments include 2 members for liaisons to the Board of Supervisors, 1 VSBA voting delegate, 1 VSBA alternate delegate, 1 liaison to the Southwest Virginia Governor's School, and up to 2 liaisons for Educational Foundation. And last year's appointments were, as you remember, for the Board of Supervisor liaison is the chair and the vice chair will attend, and Ms. Parton was our voting delegate, and Mr. Chabaka was our alternate. Will you be able to keep that positions
Sure.
Sure, definitely.
unless any other volunteers to? And the next will be the Southwest Virginia Governor's School. They meet 4 or 5 times a year, and usually in Pulaski, well, not usually, it's always in Pulaski, and usually at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. In the past, I did, and then Mr. Chabaka did, and then we kind of alternate, and I'm willing to continue unless anybody else willing to do it, or we can try to alternate if one of us cannot do. I know Ms. Parton at one point asked if she knows the dates ahead of time.
I'd be willing to.
She'll be able to do
Yeah,
that.
I'd be willing to alternate or to rotate into that. If you want to hold the official position, that's fine. and then we could try to alternate or rotate into that. I would certainly encourage, I mean, you know, certainly I work too, but I would encourage as much as possible for as many of us to, you know, I think rotate into that role at some point and just see what goes on down there. I think it's a really
Can you
good
remind
thing.
us the timing of those meetings? When do they usually occur?
Usually changes. It is pretty much quarterly. I think the first one, the last one of the year was December, but they had to cancel and reschedule in January. So I will, or whoever goes to the first one will get the calendar. They're pretty good at, you know, having a calendar and sharing. So once I have the calendar, I will share with you all. So we may, you know,
Right.
we may each pick one if
Right.
we
So
want
what
to.
time of the day?
It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's in
Usually
the last
Tuesday or Wednesday or?
Usually Tuesday when I did it,
Tuesdays. I feel like the most of the time
Yeah.
has been Tuesdays, and
but it's
usually
often an off week from when we have our board meetings.
Yeah.
At least when I did it.
it's not the same. Yeah, it's not the
That's-
same time.
I just need
And it
to
only
remind you.
lasts for an hour, and sometimes even shorter
Yes.
than that.
Yep.
Um,
Thank you, I just needed a reminder.
Yeah, sure, no problem. And as soon as I get the calendar, because we missed the December meeting, I don't have any calendar. I'll share with you also. You'll be able to actually decide if you can make any of those ahead of time. The next one will be Education Foundation, and I think with Ms. Graham, Ms. Cass showed an interest to continue with that.
Yes, I'd like to.
And for the Town of Christiansburg liaison, Ms. Pond, and maybe Ms. Parkin
Yes,
will
I
will
told
take
Jamie that we
turns,
could
yeah.
either attend together,
Yeah.
or if one of us couldn't go, the other one could possibly try to go.
Sounds
That'd be
So,
great.
Sounds good. And I think Town of Blacksburg liaison meetings, and if you can make it, and, you know, one of the Blacksburg members
Yeah,
may
I'd be glad
may alternate
do
with
that.
you too, so it's not to put the pressure on, you know,
Mhm.
a single individual. Sounds good. Are we all happy with these committee assignments? May I have a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Next one, adoption of
I'm sorry.
resolution.
Ms. Caron, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Oh, okay, I'm really getting quick on this. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I missed that part. Okay, next one is adopting of the resolution, appointing agent and deputy agent for signing claims. I need a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the superintendent and in his absence, the assistant superintendent of operation to serve as agent and deputy agent for signing claims.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have our deputy agents in place. The next one is appointing a superintendent designee. May I have a motion to appoint the deputy superintendent as the primary superintendent designee, and in their absence, the assistant superintendent for operation as the secondary superintendent designee?
So moved.
Second?
I have motion and second. Any discussion, any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We have our designees. The next one is the scheduled meeting dates, times, and locations for the board meetings. And this time, we put VSBA meetings as well for your information so that you can see ahead of time which ones you'll be able to attend. And the only one that I noticed, maybe we did not confirm with our Board of Supervisors, but at one point we said January 28th will be the joint meeting with them. Do we know we are doing that or not? I know that's not on the calendar, but,
It was going to be after we.
because we discussed the budget on the
Right.
21st, so I was wondering if
Right.
maybe we
We'll
have
get
not
back with them.
confirmed.
I
Yeah,
have not
that's fine.
confirmed that.
Yeah, we
no.
will just,
You,
we will
do you
just
know that,
approve
Mr. Crayons? What,
Notify them, I don't remember that January 28th being a specific day. We mentioned it with Craig and
okay,
their chair and their vice chair.
okay. Okay.
We can confirm tomorrow morning.
Okay. And we will just know that when that's happening.
We'll confirm.
Sure. So you'll see the rest of the dates, and may I have a motion to approve our calendar as presented?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and second. Any questions, board members, regarding?
Quick question on the 31st, that was moved because of NSBA, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's because it,
I'm sorry, the 31st of March, we
March.
have a meeting on the 5th Tuesday instead of the first Tuesday of April, so,
it was
I
because of spring break.
oh, okay.
And so that you wouldn't have a meeting
During,
with
when the
students
kids are off,
and
okay.
things
With the
like
students,
that,
Gotcha, okay,
when they might be trying to leave to go out of town because
Okay.
spring break starts the next day.
gotcha, yep.
It was unanimously,
Yeah.
every
Yeah,
board
I
member
just couldn't
voted.
remember,
And it
thank you.
did help the return from the meeting, too.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the, I think, initial reason.
Yep. Great.
Any other questions regarding the calendar? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have our calendar. Next one is adopting our hiring practices resolution. May I have a motion to adopt the revised hiring practices resolution? This year's revision include the focus on diversity in our hiring practices. And thank you, Ms. Franklin, for pointing that out. I think it covered to the really what we are
Already doing?
achieving. Yeah. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and second. Any questions regarding that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We adopt our hiring practices. The next one is adoption of our board procedures, code of ethics, and standard of conduct. Annually, the school board revisits the school board procedures, standards of conduct, and code of ethics. These are noted in our policy 1-16 and 1-1.7. I will encourage you to read them, especially the number 4, 6, and 7. May I have a motion to reaffirm our policies?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We reaffirm our procedures, ethics, and standards of conduct. The next one, reaffirming our school board protocols. And school board initially affirmed these protocols in 1998. Last year, we revised these protocols during our board retreat. Before we take action on these, I would like to read them aloud. Number 1, relationship with each other. Members of the school board are reminded of the protocols outlined in the board procedures, code of ethics, and standards of conduct approved by the board at its organization meeting in January. Board members are encouraged to share information from their constituents from outside their voting districts with the corresponding board members where appropriate. Relationship with superintendent. Members of the school board are encouraged to communicate with superintendent regularly and interact frequently as their time permits. The superintendent will always remember to share all relevant information with all the board members. The superintendent, when bringing new policies forward, will make sure to establish a process which includes time for board members' discussion, questions, and reflection. 3, relationship with district employees. Members of the school board should seek information through superintendent or deputy superintendent. Board members are reminded that individually they have no authority to direct staff, but that all the authority is vested in the board as a whole. Board members are encouraged, however, to expand their knowledge of successes and challenges within all district buildings through visitations and other means. Board members are encouraged to inform the superintendent's office when making visits to schools and setting up meetings with principals. Relationship with the Board of Supervisors. Members of the school board are encouraged to continue to provide a heightened awareness of activities in and information about the school system and individual schools to the Board of Supervisors. School board members are also encouraged to receive information from the Board of Supervisors in like manner. Relationship with the members of the community. Members of the school board are encouraged to receive information from committee members and seek out information, but avoid expressing a final decision or proposing a solution until they are at the board table in open meeting. Board members are also encouraged to direct members of the community with specific concerns to appropriate staff by following the chain of command. All personnel complaints and the criticism received by the board or its individual members will be directed to superintendent. May I have a motion to reaffirm these protocols?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We reaffirm our protocols. The next one, reaffirming our mission, vision, core values, and statement of inclusivity. May I have a motion to reaffirm the mission, vision, statements, core values, and the statement of inclusivity for the school division?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We reaffirm our mission. The next one, adoption of resolution authorizing the superintendent to settle claims against the school boards. May I have a motion to approve resolution granting authority to the division superintendent to authorize settlement of claims against the school board?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We adopt the resolution. The last one on this section is the announcement of the availability of our policy book. MCPS policy manual is available on the MCPS website, www.mcps.org. Also, printed copies are available to citizens as needed by contacting the clerk of the board. Well, next item on our agenda is our public hearing for PPEA proposals. Tonight, we have set aside time to hear from residents regarding to the PPEA proposals to renovation, CES, CPS, and Bellevue. I'm checking the... You may sign up to speak on the Chromebook at the back of the room or the Chromebook at the front of the room. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to speak. The screen throughout the room and the laptop will indicate speaker has 30 seconds remaining and 3 minutes passed. I do not have any individual sign up on. You don't see them, all right? Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure I refreshed enough. So we do not have any individual sign up, and then our public hearing is now closed. Next one is our public address. At this time and at each of our regularly scheduled meetings, the school board sets aside up to 30 minutes for residents, students, and employees to address the board about issues pertaining to public education in Montgomery County. You may sign up to speak on the Chromebook at the back of the room or the Chromebook in the front of the room. The board may vote to extend the public address in 30 minutes increments. If the public address lasts longer than 1 hour, public address will continue after any closed session items or before meeting adjourned. I'm trying to see that one. I do not see anybody sign up to address the board at this time, so our public address is closed. Back to the agenda. Next item is the consent agenda. If there's nothing to be pulled, then we'll consider items approved as they are. Any questions regarding the consent agenda? You see the past minutes, field trips, and 4 grant proposals that were very exciting looking
Yeah.
grant proposals. One is launching the Blacksburg High School robotics, work-based learning, cybersecurity, creating an infrastructure for creative design build experiences, and supporting math and science at Auburn High School. Are we okay to approve them as it is? Consent agenda is approved as it is. The next one is payment of our bills. May I have a motion to pay our bills?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any questions regarding bills? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We pay our bills. The next one is the acknowledging the receipt of the financial summary reports. May I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any questions about the financial summary report? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We approve our summary reports. Now we are in our business part of the meeting, and first will be our board member reports. I know that two of the board members, Ms. Dana wasn't available, Ms. Pardin wasn't available December meeting to share VSBA experience, and also at that time, Ms. Cass wasn't on board, but she attended, so I would like to give them a chance to start with, and then
You want me to go first?
we can jump in
I'll
if
go
we have
first.
more.
Since I apologize for missing the last meeting, I had an illness and an injury going on at the same time, so I
It wasn't
apologize
fun.
to my board members. It's good to be back. First off, I'd just like to thank all the schools, clubs, bands, Corps cadets' participation in all the parades we had over the last meeting that I attended. Veterans Day, the parades, Christiansburg and Blacksburg. I heard lots of good feedback, very impressed with all of them. Just good stuff with them. Thank everybody who does what they do for them. Also want to just make more of a thank you to all of the schools for recognizing our community and our veterans by having lunches, programs, anything they can do, they put on for Veterans Day. I continuously get such positive feedback. It means so much to our community and to all the veterans here in our community, and it really shows the emphasis to our students, I think, on how important these people are and the sacrifices they made. So I really like, and I'm sure will continue doing that with our schools as that goes. So just wanted to bring that up again. I was able to attend the legislative breakfast right before the conference. A big thank you to the Blacksburg culinary class. Their food was amazing. It was delicious. Very good information. Enjoyed attending that. Was able to attend the VSBA conference for the second year in a row. I'm a veteran now with that. As always, it's always, the funnest part is traveling with Miss Bond. She keeps me in line with, and gentle reminders. But thank her because she lets me be her co-pilot for the last 2 years, going down to that. So big thank you to her as well. I was excited and very honored. I was the VSBA voting delegate this year. I want to thank the board for allowing me to do that. It was a great honor and privilege to represent Montgomery County Public Schools as the voting delegate. It was a great experience for me to be able to meet other delegates, learn how other neighboring counties are doing things, seeing things, how they feel about the same issues that we all have going on as statewide. In a nutshell, basically, the proposed legislative topics ranged from assessment reform to student attendance requirements. There were 3 proposals that were removed from the block for debate. Proposal number 3, mandatory reporting of misdemeanors and statutory offenses. Proposal 11, which was attendance requirements for accreditation. These proposals were debated and were approved by the Assembly in the end. There was another proposal, number 8, on the scheduling of elections. However, that was debated, lengthily debated, and it failed to gain approval from the delegates. So that was actually a lengthy delegate assembly, I think, more than what usually it is. And it was good, like I said, good experience, good to know, good to see. The ongoing board members were recognized at the end. They received plaques from the association and a thank you for their services. Didn't get to attend as many breakout sessions due to the assembly, but I did attend one. I believe Ms. Cass may have been in this one with me. It was, the name of the session was Beyond Standardized Testing, How to Measure What Matters. So basically, in a nutshell, what I took back from that was test scores should not validate who we are as a school division. Sometimes a lot more emphasis is put on us by, just our test scores from our students. We're so much more than that, and our students are so much more than that. They did make a point in saying there is power telling our own story and storytelling. We can do that through our media. We can do that through our own newsletters, and some school districts even deliver their own papers that the school does, and just to kind of keep the community as involved as possible. Another thing that I brought back from that was getting said over and over again was that the same story needs to be told 8 to 10 different ways, because everybody looks and hears and sees things differently. So as long as we're telling it, and we're telling it in different ways, but with the same core meaning, we just need to keep doing that. A lot of this we are already doing with our social media and with other things that our schools are doing, so I was really glad to see that we had already gotten a step ahead on this. And another thing that jumped out at me was that no matter what you do, your job tells a story. So we've got to just remember that everything that we do, tells a story to everyone around us in our community, and that schools are the heart of our community. So share our stories with our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Cass?
Okay, this is a little weird, so I hope I don't seem too awkward up here. It's kind of odd being on the other side of the dais instead of sitting over there. But first of all, I just want to say thank you for welcoming me to the board. I'm excited to be part of this team and looking forward to doing a lot of good things with everyone. I've gotten started pretty quickly by going to the VSBA conference in November that Dana was just talking about. Went to several different breakout sessions. In particular, there was a mental health one that I went to that I thought was in line with a lot of what we're doing here in Montgomery County. I was able to stay to the end where I saw the final keynote speaker, Steve Constantine, who talked about involving families, and he was a really terrific speaker. I think he did a breakout session also, but his keynote speech was really interesting and enjoyable, and he actually has a book out that I think would be worth reading. So, and the other thing I did at the conference that's totally unrelated to the board is they actually have a 5K, and I decided to get up in the morning and go run a 5K and be the Montgomery County representative.
Very impressive.
for it was impressive, considering.
That's expected
So-
every year now.
Yes. Yes. So I did not win, but I did not finish last, so it was a successful run in my eyes. Other than that, I've had my orientation here at the school board office and also at the operations center, and I mentioned to Dr. Meyer that was probably the most interesting piece of it all, because it was something as a teacher I'd never really saw the behind-the-scenes operations within the county, and it was also weird being over in old Christiansburg Middle School, because I even got to go by my old classroom, which was kind of neat to see my name still on the wall there. And but now there's 2 women working in there doing probably more than I got done. So, and also I had my swearing in, obviously, so I'm here now. Coming up, I will be going next Tuesday to the VSBA new board member orientation in Richmond. So I'm looking forward to that and just continuing to gain more knowledge so I can be a useful and successful board member.
Thank you, Ms. Cass. And the 5K was impressive. I think you recovered after that. It took probably for a while.
Yeah, it was.
She wasn't running for a long while.
Yeah, it was the first time I'd run in 6 months. I don't know what possessed me to get out of bed and go run a 5K, but I did, and it was hilly too, so it was rough.
Any other board members at this time would like to share their reports?
I also went to the legislative breakfast back in November, and unfortunately, we only had 2 aides. They weren't even our delegates that represent us. So that was a little disappointing, but we know they went back with great information. So I appreciate that they took the time to come. And then I'm part of the action team for curriculum, and it is truly an honor to sit in those meetings with such knowledgeable people in our county that are, both in administration and teachers, and I just feel like I'm sitting in there just trying to absorb it all. So I appreciate the opportunity to be doing that.
Thank you. Any other board members?
I'll add one thought on the strategic planning that's going on, because I've been attending that too for the instruction group. And one thing that came up there that I thought that I'd like to share is that we have some students on the board, and it's really been nice to get that student perspective. And one thing that they requested was respect of their time, and I guess a mission that allows them to maintain wellness and balance in their lives outside of school. So that was interesting to hear that request come in from the students. I thought I'd share that with you guys.
That's a good point. Any other board members at this time? Just before the break, I read Christiansburg Elementary School third graders, and it was a fun book that I did read the kids for many years. It was the North Pole, and they had a good time, and also they wanted to know if I had any traditions when I was growing up, so we talked about it. That I am from Turkey, but it's not the turkey they will eat at Thanksgiving. So they were very excited finding the turkey on the map, and that was a fun visit, and I appreciate Miss Sizemore inviting me there. And I attended the new board training with Miss Cass, and it's always fun to hear from Dr. Harris, even though I've been through couple of them. I always pick up new things each time I sit down with, so it was a good day. And then I attended the Team 401 Robotics Blacksburg High School open house, and that was mind-boggling by itself, to operating those robots, and they were actually trusting me to play with one, and it was covered with all sorts of pads, so you really cannot go wrong when you to take it to the wall, because I realized how hard it is to use two joysticks, and they go different directions, and my coordination, wasn't so good, but they were doing a great job with, coordinating that. And I'm also mental health action team, so we had a great meeting there. And then I attended Harding Avenue World Fair, which was very nice. It reminded me the Heritage Fair back then when my kids in Harding Avenue, everybody represented a country, and they brought some the flags, costumes, pictures, some food. There was good food to try, so they were all good events. Any other board members? If not, we're moving on.
Can I say one?
Go ahead.
Sure.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not my time, it's y'all's time. I should have said this during my time, but I just want to inform the board of something that I've been working on here, and it started right before the holidays. Our core cadet instructors, as you know, we've created a very unique program where it's not a traditional junior ROTC program. Junior ROTC programs in Virginia and across the state, or across the country actually, the instructors are actually licensed through the military branch based on what the school adopts. As you know, we have adopted a sort of a generic program where it's just simply military science. And so right now, there is no set teacher license that connects for these instructors. And the problem, so we're offering is what's called a local elective. The problem with offering a local elective is students can't receive what's called a sequential elective. Students need sequential electives in high school, as part of their program. In other words, take, for instance, Art 1, Art 2, Machining 1, Machining 2, that kind of thing. But they are receiving credit, just not a sequential. To do that, the red tape is the teacher getting a license for military science, which basically doesn't exist. And so I spoke to the state superintendent, and we had a good conversation. In fact, I plan on meeting with him in Richmond next Wednesday morning to have a conversation with him and the licensing folks in Virginia. And there's a lot of issues with licensing in Virginia and the obstacles that folks have to actually go through to teach. But in talking to him, he suggested, and I followed through, the best way to get this changed is to make it like any other CTE course, which it is. Any other CTE course, if someone has work-based experience, then basically the board can certify that work-based experience, and they have to have at least 4 years, I believe, of work-based, 2 years of work-based experience. 2 years of that experience will then get you a license to teach that trade without a college degree, for instance. And so what we want to do is treat military science just like any other CTE, which it should be, because the folks we're hiring have military experience. And it would entail adding one sentence to the regulation. And that regulation has to, if the regulation changes, it forces the the board at the Department of Education to change it. We don't have to have their approval anymore if it's changed through the General Assembly. So I've contacted Nick Rush and Senator Edwards, who are both veterans, and obviously one on the House side and one on the Senate side, and they've agreed to carry that bill for us to get that change made. And I've also contacted our other delegates to support them as well. So we'll be talking to them about that next week. It's just a small change. It basically reads like any other CTE license. So we can move forward and make it an official type of class, per se. Just so hopefully it works.
I hope
Yeah.
so. That's exciting.
And, we just finished a recent survey for the Corps Cadets. This year, we have approximately 200 kids in it. Next year, we anticipate 300.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's
only
already,
gonna
it's
grow.
That's
our largest
Yeah.
program in the school division already,
Yeah.
in terms of
awesome.
CTE. So,
That's pretty
anyway.
crazy.
any questions about that?
No.
Sound like a plan? Okay.
Thank you for
Yeah, thank
advocating
you.
for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's easy to forget everything, and then when you hear someone else, it triggers, what you want to say. But I just wanted to say how much I enjoyed on our action team with Tommy and Mark going to CES and Fallen Branch. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and looking forward to the next one, so it was a lot of good.
Thank you. It's wonderful. I think that I'm not skipping anybody, and that wraps up our board reports. And I will continue with the grant proposals.
Okay. All right. First grant proposal, increasing CTE access for students with autism. This grant will allow East Montgomery High School to redesign the robotics curriculum so that the program can be more accessible to all students. This will allow all students to use the same robots instead of students with autism spectrum disorder needing to use a different robot than other students. Tonight, we were asking that you approve this grant.
May I have a motion to approve the grant titled Increasing CTE Access for Students with Autism Spectrum Disorder?
So, second?
A motion and a second. Any questions? And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We approve our grant.
Okay, next is the Elementary English Language Arts textbook adoption. You've had the opportunity to review the proposed textbooks for elementary language arts at our December meeting. We're asking you to approve this textbook adoption tonight.
May I have a motion to approve our elementary English language arts textbook adoption?
So moved?
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any questions regarding the books? Then all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We adopt our books.
Okay, next is Graduate with a Plan. Mr. Garrettson is here tonight to provide an update on our College Application Week activities. Mr. Garrett?
I forgot to pull up his presentation. It'll be just 1 second.
Mr. Garrett's son? Got the son up, sorry.
You shared it with me, Google, right? Okay, sorry.
Mr. Garrettson were sharing his activities during the holidays. He took a large group of students, most of our students, and of scouts down to the Keys. Took them sailboat. I don't know what you were doing out there.
Oh, my
Were you
gosh.
Fishing.
We were fishing and we
Okay.
were snorkeling, and
Y'all were getting sick.
I am not a sailor, that is for sure. But we absolutely did. We took about 10 primarily Montgomery County school students down to the Keys and spent about five days out on a 40-foot sailboat with Scouts. Had a good time.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
Very good.
Brave thing to do.
But it is indeed my honor to take a few minutes tonight and provide the board with an overview of our Graduate with a Plan activities, and also in large part express some appreciation and gratitude on behalf of the students and me personally, who had the opportunity to see some students I had back in elementary school get to this point in their academic career and begin to think about their next steps moving forward in life. That really is the intent of the program. As many of you know, we've done this for a number of years now in the county. Our point is, as we see our seniors, our 673 seniors who now really have that diploma within reach, we really want to encourage them not to think of it as the end of a journey, but a step in their journey of life, and to really begin to say, what's the next step? Once I cross that stage, late May, early June, with a diploma from my high school, where am I going next? What am I doing next? So it's basically school-based events that provide students encouragement, time, and support to begin to look into what's coming next. As Mr. Chewbacca said earlier, our students are super busy. So just to have the opportunity during the school day at times to sit back and think about where am I really going next is a real benefit that we afford to them through these programs. Many of our students will consider lots of different options, be it the military, be it a trade school, be it straight out into the workforce and apprenticeship, and of course for many of our students that next step is higher education. Along with this, Montgomery County Public Schools do pay the fees for up to 2 college applications for students who are preparing to graduate, if that's their intended course. We have our school counselors, career coaches, English teachers, and college representatives all available to assist during that time. So even as you are setting in your English 12 class, maybe your assignment might be to begin to write some of those college essays that you know you're going to need in the coming months as you do your application. And of course, all of those students who present us with a post-graduation plan receive a t-shirt, which of course each of you received tonight as well. Just to give you an overview of some of the applications that were submitted during this time, this is not an all-inclusive list. Certainly this is just kind of an overview of some of what we saw during our time out at the schools. You see a lot of state schools represented, a lot of our local hometown schools represented, of course our local community college highly represented, and then you see some also far away, Hawaii Pacific, Montana. We've got a lot of students with big dreams, and they are impressive to see. We do have some special thanks we need to mention. I do want to give a special thank you to Nathan Gallagher. That's Nathan over there on the right in the picture. He designed the shirt. He's a senior at Blacksburg High School in Miss Showalter's graphic design class. So very proud of his shirt there, and he did a great job. We do want to thank our school counselors, career coaches, English teachers. I do want to make special mention of Miss Diane Naff, who attended every single event we offered at all 4 high schools and was a ball of enthusiasm. Of course, the Department of Education for us, College Application Week is a program they sponsor as well. One of our high schools qualify for that program, only one, Eastern Montgomery High. So we do want to thank the efforts from the state to help us with that. That really provides a lot of tuition waivers. Of course, our community college ACE program. And again, to you members of the board, thank you so much for encouraging and supporting this opportunity for our high school seniors. That's the overview. I'm happy to field any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Garrison. Any questions this time to Mr. Garrison?
Thank you.
All
Thank you.
excited.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Kids. Yeah, thank you.
I have one question. Do we have a breakdown on our students as far as the demographics, who is actually taking advantage of the program?
I don't specifically. As I'm out at the school, basically that time is made available to every student. Many of the schools will address that. They will use that time through an English class, and so the entire class will come. And we may have some students, for example, we had a young man at one of the schools who had already signed his paperwork for the military. So he shared that as his plan, and then he used that time doing other things while other students are busily filling out college applications or looking into things. I do not have, it's essentially available to every student. With that said, I can't really go in and pick apart, at least not this year, can't go in and pick apart which student applied for which particular school.
Well, not necessarily which school, but seeing, our demographics of our students who are actually taking advantage of filling out the applications. Female, male, race, just to see who is actually doing this.
Yes, ma'am. We certainly could make an effort to track it better in the future, absolutely.
I would appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Do you know what the overall participation is? Because I'm assuming even though it's offered to everybody, not everybody does create a plan and follow through, right?
You're correct. And in terms of, it depends, I guess, on what, if you're speaking in terms of college applications, certainly not every student intends to go that route.
Sure.
So the example of the young man with his military commitment, there would be no sense at that time for him to complete an application when his plan, his next 4 years are arranged.
Sure.
We do have, and there's also a little bit of tracking in terms of those applications that end up, those students who qualify for fee waivers, or those who apply to schools that don't have fees. We do still have some schools out there that don't have an application fee. In the end, we submitted 539 applications that we paid for.
That you paid for.
That we paid for, yes, sir. Again, 673 students, so not even one per student. But again, that doesn't include those that we did not pay for.
Correct, yeah. That's pretty good participation for now.
So maybe a better way to ask that would be, how many students don't come through with a plan?
In the end, next to zero.
Okay.
Because again, at that time, and again, I know on the one hand, it's only a T-shirt, but it's also pretty incredible to see students, get their shirt, immediately go to the restroom, change shirts, and put it on, and then wear it the rest of the day.
Right.
So there is a piece of, okay, student, I'm not going to complete a college application. Okay, what's your plan?
Sure,
Let's
just the
talk
plan.
about your
Yeah.
plan.
Right.
And you do have those students, and even if their plan is to take that year off, I'm going to take a year and I'm going to work, or I already have a job and I'm going to do this for a year
Right.
and save some money, and then college might be my option.
Right.
We pretty much make them all
Okay.
give some sort of a plan as to what happens after you step off the stage come
Right.
June.
Great. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a great plan, but how can we put that in line with the ACES program? Because I'm a true believer in that. I mean, as my daughter is getting ready to start tech in the fall, owing nothing. And I just, I've talked to some students, and they're kind of like, no, I never heard of it. Well, nah, that's not for me. Nah, I want to go to college. It's one of those things, I still think people think that it might be less than. And, I mean, she did all the applications, but and with all due respect, when I say this, I don't mean it in an ugly way, but, you know, we're paying for this when then the students may decide to do the ACES program, and in my opinion, why, to me, that's wasted time and money. And seeing it how I'm seeing it, like I said, I mean, nothing wrong. I think it's a great plan, but I also am a true believer in the ACES program, or the ACE program. I always say ACES, but ACE program. So is there any way we can incorporate that into?
We had a large number of students submit their New River applications during
They're
this time.
submitting to New River during this process.
Yes, sir.
Well, not just-
Yes, sir. And my experience firsthand with the students, there really was no indication that that program was any lesser
Okay, good.
than any of the others. And there also was that same point you make. A lot of students saying, this gets me started
Yeah.
without loading me down with a bunch of debt.
And
Um,
I sometimes don't think it comes home to them at the age they are and at the point they are until, like now, like I said, you know, I know Abby's really kind of going, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And so I hadn't heard that. The things that I've heard have been more, you know, other colleges, bigger colleges, four-year schools and things like that. And I just want to make sure that this is a huge part, and maybe a little push. I mean, you know, you can't make students make those choices and those decisions, but
We had representatives from New River at all 4 events with us.
good.
So they were there that day.
All I need to hear.
That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Now, I sent out an article that I think I posted on Facebook and on Twitter.
About the
That's
cost
a
of
really
education?
about the cost of education and student debt, and it was basically as an article about a parent and the discussion they had with their daughter. And I didn't know this at the time, but it's actually a Blacksburg
Yeah.
student.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Blacksburg.
One of my
student.
ex-students.
Yeah, was it? I didn't
Yes.
know. Okay. So it was actually a Blacksburg student and mom sharing some conversation and thoughts about, you know, the whys and making decisions of where you go and why you go and the cost and just being smarter about it. And really good article. So,
During our strategic planning, one of the students from Christiansburg that participated with us shared that his brother had graduated and did not have an opportunity to take advantage of the ACE program, and was helping him understand
Yep.
how wonderful and what a gift it was that he was going to be able to do 2 years
Yeah.
tuition-free.
I've already talked my first one into it.
Oh, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
I just,
It's huge.
Absolutely.
And
It
it's the
really
same
is.
classes. I mean, you're
Well,
taking the same
and-
classes.
just to share
It
this,
is.
when Abby has spoke with her tech counselors, they've even encouraged her to take a certain class while she's at New River because she has the time, because she finished so early. And she's got money from scholarships that can pay for that. And they said, you've got plenty left over. I mean, she's just thrilled, and, you know, going into the business college, then it's, because they're kind of like, you know, it's a little tougher. Go ahead and get this under your belt. And
And they
It's
get
just been
more
fabulous.
attention from their professors at New River than they will get any attention in giant classes
it's
in
been-
first year, especially, you know,
right.
college is
I
growing.
can't-
Virginia
I can't
Tech.
say enough about it. I really
Yeah.
can't.
Definitely
I'm
have a
thrilled
lot
we
of
offer it and have it.
advantages.
I wish we'd had it years ago, but I'm so glad we have it now.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm gonna give you all a little background on the ACE program, because most people don't understand where that
How it
came
started.
from.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure do, yeah.
It came from a conversation around race
Mhm.
and barriers that students encounter. And from that, the law enforcement group
Mhm.
Yes.
and Chief
Chief
Wilson
Wilson, yeah.
really pushed it, but it came directly out of the dialogue on race
Yeah.
and folks sitting down and having conversations about what we do to make things better for all of our students. So, kudos.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Ready?
Yes,
Move on
ready
here?
to move on?
Okay, next is a PPEA discussion. Tonight, we had a public hearing for the PPEA proposals for the renovations and additions at CPS, CES, and Bellevue. Mr. Kranz is here tonight to answer any questions and give you an update as to where we are and how we're already moving forward.
So since the last time we talked about it, what we've done is kind of a two-path track. We're working with Branch under the comprehensive agreement with the intent that at the 21st meeting, assuming that the Board of Supervisors approves the resolution on their 13th meeting, which we are on their agenda, that then you would have the authority to authorize us to move forward with their comprehensive agreement. Those discussions are moving very well, but we do have a few things to iron out between the parties. At the same time, we continue to work on the design. We've received input from all the schools. We've taken what the schools have given us, we've added it to the design, and we're currently computing what the budget numbers would be and what their impact, good or bad, may be. We have begun discussions with Branch, and they are going to begin working from their side, looking at our design and looking at our budgets, and then finalizing and giving us from their perspective if our budgeted numbers are good, bad, or indifferent. We do believe we're all on the same page, but it's good to get confirmation of that. So those are the main things that are going on as we speak. Our goal still is to try to be doing site work as soon as we can in the spring. And then depending on the site and what we have to do, be in a position to start construction on it before July 1st. Generally, you can do an elementary school in 12 months, but that'll depend on what our final design is and how the numbers work out from a construction perspective.
Any questions?
Okay, so one of the questions that's starting to come up is, how is this going to impact the students?
Our intent is to have no impact to students, but honestly, I can't answer that. I mean, we'll minimize it, but until we complete that design and budget piece. Like, for example, we had a rough idea on CES. There's a lot of rock on the CPS and CES sites. Doing some minor adjustment, we walked through with all the engineers and architects. Doing some minor adjustments, we can save some substantial dollars. So we're adding that, for example, into our design and seeing how it comes out. And that's where this process, when we recommended it, is it's a collaboration. We have a limited amount of dollars. What's the maximum we can get for those dollars? And the process, I'll have to say, is working as we want it to. And that's when I'll be able, Ms. Penny, to give you a good answer to that. But our goal is to have no disruption to the students.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We're
Thank you.
excited.
Sure.
Keep rolling.
Okay, next program of studies. Mr. Pauly is here to provide a brief overview of the changes proposed for the next new program of studies. And we will ask you to approve the revised program at your next school board meeting, and this is the high school program of studies.
I don't know if I should have my feelings hurt that it seemed he emphasized the word brief when he said that. Or maybe I'm sensitive. I hope that you've had an opportunity to at least look over the newest version of the program of studies. This would be the only existing paper copy at this point. It has grown to over 200 pages. As I've told you before, it's not intended to be a hard copy document. I keep a hard copy because it helps me with revisions. It really is intended to be an online copy or an online document. And as such, one of the most useful pieces of feedback I received was from a student. She served on the strategic planning committee, and she was talking with me about the program of studies and offered some suggestions to make it more usable, and I've used every one of her suggestions. It was fabulous. She's a great kid. I think she's only a freshman. But one of the things that seems to have worked best is she explained that to use the search function, simply doing Control F to search it, if you're searching the name of a course, say you're searching English, English is mentioned so many times in some of the opening pages and on multiple lists and pathways that you've got to go, 60 or so down before you get to an English course. So she suggested creating internal hyperlinks within the document, and so I said, yeah, what a great idea. I wonder how you do that. So I watched some YouTube videos, and I learned how to do it. So I'm pretty proud of that. It works really well. I even was further proud. I put some, back to table of contents and back to the top of the doc kind of things. You'll see if you play with it online, when it gets online, I believe you have a Google Doc or a PDF version of it. It works in the PDF version. But it works pretty cool. I'm sure there are some glitches. But as far as the hyperlinks within the document, I know that's the last thing on the list, but that's the thing I I'm most proud of. I think probably the most significant thing is the expansion of equity to the access of the courses. This is something we've talked about. Those of you who've been around for a number of years know that 2 years ago, we put the program of studies together, which was basically taking what existed and putting it into a different format. And then we've spent last year and this year refining it with the goal of providing more equity or more access in a more equitable manner for students. And one of the things may be difficult to explain, but people who are involved in it understand when I say we've sort of changed the meaning of the dots. You know how under the courses, it has a dot next to each school where a course is offered? And we had put a notation under the registration form that says, if you see one that's offered at another school and you're interested in it, just let your guidance counselor know and we'll see what we can do, right? So we found that to be a bit inadequate, but it was a step in the right direction, the spirit of it was. Now we've placed a dot for certain courses. We have placed a dot in all the schools, and the school where it lives currently has no notation next to it, but the other schools, it has a notation that says, this course may be offered at your school based on sufficient student interest and demand and the availability of qualified staff, which the dot allows students to actually select the course. There was no mechanism for that previously. They had to go just verbally tell their counselor. So now they can actually select a course, and we'll have data to use to say whether or not we need that course at that particular school. That may mean moving some staff from one school to another during part of a day. It may mean using technology. If you're familiar with the Google Swivel, that's something we'd like to do more of. So it's better than just a virtual course. I think it's in real time, but students are observing the teacher and the classes on their device, and they're able to participate in real time. So we'd like to look at we are doing some of that already, but we'd like to expand that. So the ones that we actually experimented with this last year. We put DE, Anatomy and Physiology, in the program of studies to offer it at Christiansburg, even though it didn't live there at the time. But we knew we had a teacher we could maybe share, and the response was overwhelming. We have 3 full sections. Maybe it is, Mark, do you remember? Is it 2? Two full sections of DE, Anatomy and Physiology at Christiansburg High School. The teacher was able to go from Eastern Montgomery, she still teaches a section at Eastmont, but go over to Christiansburg and teach 2 sections. And then the biology that she had been teaching, regular Bio 1 that she had been teaching, Christiansburg sent a biology teacher over there to teach the biology. So there was no loss of staffing, it was just a reshuffling. So we're looking at doing that. We're experimenting with 3 DE courses, DE Government. We only have 1 DE Government teacher in the entire division, and that is something that is highly sought after. So we're experimenting with offering DE Government this way to see where it might land in different schools. DE US History and DE Anatomy and Physiology, since we're the only school in the New River Valley that has any DE Anatomy and Physiology, but we have 2 of them. We kind of stole one from somewhere. We're also going to experiment with that somewhat in the world languages. Auburn and Eastmont only have Spanish, and Christiansburg only has Spanish and French. Blacksburg has Spanish, French, American Sign Language, and German. But if you look at their numbers, it looks very much like we could make some adjustments and maybe share a German teacher or share a French teacher and offer it at some of the other schools. Putting the dot and changing the meaning of the dot means we'll collect data on where they might come. And then there are a few selected CTE classes that we will do that with as well, which if you have questions on those, Mark Husband is in the audience and could come up and answer those. Other than that, you'll see just some other revisions that are more utilitarian. One is we've added an appendix where it's sort of one-stop shopping for parents rather than telling guidance counselors to go to our, what's that shared Google Doc thing called? Administrative guide, or telling parents to go to a policy manual and giving them links. They can just go to the appendix now and find the most up-to-date forms of various types. And then if you remember, we revised 7-2.4, where we put some limits on external courses and redefined virtual and some explanations for summer courses and extra courses. So I've included a new section. It's only about a paragraph that size, but it's in there now to clarify what our expectations are as a school division for summer, virtual, and external courses. So, other than that, the list is there in front of you, and if you have any questions, ones that I won't be able to answer, Mr. Husband is here for CTE.
I'm very excited to
Yes.
see some of these new, especially the pharmacy one. That's going to be awesome.
That's his baby.
I
So,
know.
yeah, that's,
It's going to be awesome.
I tell you, it's very exciting to have Mr. Husband working with him, so it's just been a fabulous partnership. I say there's really no more line between academic courses and CTE courses. Really, all courses are geared towards preparing kids, as you heard Mr. Garrettson say, for their future and for their careers. And that's what the C in CTE is. So I think they're all CTE.
Well, and I think it's important to note, for those who are watching this on video, that, this has already been vetted out. So we already know that we have the teaching capacity for it.
Yes, ma'am.
And if not, you've noted that, where, like with the course cadets, if we go up to 300, we'll certainly need another
Correct.
teacher. And that these can fit at those schools scheduling-wise. You've already vetted all of that out.
Yes, staffing-wise and scheduling-wise,
Right,
yes.
and it's important for people to understand that.
It's a matter of choice. We want to be, as to the extent possible, we want this to be student-driven. We want the students to say what they want. We don't want to just put out a course of study that says, here are our courses and pick them. We'd like to say, here's everything we're able to offer with our current staffing. And depending on what you pick, it'll change from year to year. One year a teacher may teach a lot of year one level courses, and the next year teach a lot of level 2 year courses. So their teaching assignments will change from year to year, but teachers are, especially in the CTE fields, are multi-certified.
And they're all involved in this process as well.
Oh,
And that's
absolutely. Well,
even more
actually,
important
the
to
new course
emphasize.
process begins with the teachers. The teachers propose the courses to the principals, and then the principals propose the courses to Mr. Husband and I. Now, sometimes it goes the other way, that we propose them, but then we go and pitch them to the principals, who in turn pitch them to the teachers.
Right.
And it wouldn't be successful if we didn't have qualified and willing teachers.
Absolutely.
So they're definitely part of the process, yes.
And some of them go above and beyond, giving up their planning time and et cetera, to make sure that they can meet the students' needs, the number of students.
Yes, in fact, a really good example of that is Mr. Hairston at Christiansburg High School has proposed, and he's writing a course on African American Studies at Christiansburg High School. And then we later found out that the state is actually building that course for virtual Virginia. So the standards are being made, but we approved it as a local elective. And as he builds that, he will get more and more resources through Virtual Virginia, but it's really kind of cool. So that's an example of one that, as it grows in interest, it may go on to other schools within our division. But any certified history teacher would be able to teach that. It's no different than DE, Contemporary World Religions, is offered at Blacksburg High School, because Mr. Pedersen has a degree in that and an interest in teaching it, and he proposed it.
Right,
So
awesome.
schools do maintain some unique courses.
How many of the classes are virtual?
Where'd that
Me.
come from? Oh,
Remember me?
I'm sorry.
I've been quiet so far.
How many of these are virtual?
Yeah, how many courses are virtual, just virtual?
Just virtual? So if I was answering for this school year, it is virtual psychology, virtual DE Psych and virtual DE Soc, and virtual art, DE Art, and virtual DE Music. Next year, we actually have a new teacher, I can't remember her name, at Blacksburg High School, who is credentialed to do dual enrollment psych. I think we got her from Pulaski. We've been getting good people. And so she's going to be able to teach the DE Psych face-to-face at Blacksburg. So it really depends on how we hire. I believe we have a teacher, I've been talking with him, at Auburn High School, who is credentialable, if that's a word, to teach DE music. So the virtual is really only in place until we get qualified teachers on board. However, I will say that it is a graduation requirement that all students must take at least one virtual course. Right now, we cover that through
That's with the
economics and
economics
personal
lab.
I was going to
finance.
say, is that still considered is that still?
It is all virtual, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are some schools that teach it blended, face-to-face and virtual, but at least there's a virtual component. Oh,
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr.
Husband has an
Husband may
answer.
be getting ready to say this, but
He's going to talk about computer science.
computer
I think.
science,
Yeah.
exactly.
Just to finish the point on the economics and personal finance, this year we actually made the full switch. This is the first year that we've done all virtual, all online economics and personal finance. And of course, we have a teacher in the division that actually modifies the curriculum that VDOE gives us and rewrites some tests and quizzes to fit what our students need. And that way they also have a resource within the division. But that one does qualify the economics and personal finance graduation requirement as well as the virtual course requirements. And then, yes, I did want to point out the computer science courses that we've just started offering. A teacher at Blacksburg High School named Jay Mathis, who is very well qualified to teach both cybersecurity as well as computer science courses. Once we got our cybersecurity pathway up and running last year, we kind of looked around at some of the degrees that New River Community College is offering within that space and realized that they actually have an associate's for arts and sciences in computer science that we were only 4 courses shy of. So we kind of cobbled together what courses are already being taught, a couple of them, like their AP Computer Science at Blacksburg High School. We had 2 courses there that were meeting that requirement, and then there was a DE Computer Information Systems at Christiansburg and Auburn. So we kind of looked at all 4 and figured out how can we make these available across all of those courses. So what we're actually going to do with the 4 courses that are listed there in the computer science is we're going to offer one of those per semester virtually. So no matter where you are, sometimes you'll have the option to take it in class with the teachers that are at your building or online with Mr. Mathis, or in some cases they just have the option to take it online with Mr. Mathis. So this past November, December, we rolled out the 6612, the computer information systems. And we had 26 students sign up for that virtual course. So some of those students are taking it with a study hall, but actually the majority of the students have signed up to take it as an additional course. So they'll do the work at night or on the weekends, which is really appropriate for the college level rigor. It's a good opportunity for students to get started. So if a student were to take all 4 of those courses and take just the right number, we were able to work it so that if a student was currently a junior, they can actually still have time with those courses to graduate high school and New River Community College at the same time with not just a transfer degree, but actually a degree in computer science from New River Community College, which is really exciting because New River and Radford University have an articulation agreement where there are 0 lost credits from this associate's degree to start at New River. So a student can graduate from, example, Christiansburg High School in May, and they could start at Radford University in August as a true junior and have 2 years to graduate from Radford University. So rumor is that Virginia Tech any month now is going to announce a similar articulation agreement. So we've got our fingers crossed on that as well.
And we are the first.
That's right.
So
We are
that
the
brings,
first school division in Virginia to offer this.
Yeah.
right.
I've actually heard presentations from a school in Richmond that is kind of like a magnet school. There's about 12 different schools that got together and created what they call Code RVA. And I heard a presentation last spring where they've talked about how they're working to do it, but they have not actually put together all the pieces for an associate's degree in computer science, even with the magnet school approach. So we've been able to find a few really highly qualified teachers and make it work. So it's really exciting for our students.
Nice.
I may be in the minority here, but that kind of scares me.
Well,
It
So,
scares me that students are going into college as juniors and they're just 17, maybe 18 years old, only working at a university. There's a lot of university students who are not prepared to be students, and and they graduate and they're still not prepared to live in the real world. So I think it's great that we're doing this, but I think we need to also consider making sure that our students, especially ones like this who are going to go off to college as juniors when they're just graduating from high school, are life prepared and are prepared to go to college, because it just scares me having 2 daughters who've gone off to college with finishing high school and then going off to a 4-year college. It's very stressful, and I think I hope that we are also as great as an opportunity this is for students. I think we also have to think about what kind of effect it has on young people to be moving on into college as a junior at the age of 17 years old.
I think it's always good to have somebody who shares that perspective, because I felt like as an 18-year-old starting college, I wasn't ready, and I was starting as a freshman. But I think to get this in perspective, I think we're anticipating this year 3 or 4 students to be graduating out of 600 or 700
Right.
graduates with this particular distinction. So it is, at this point, sort of the rare bird. We expect it to take off and be a little more prevalent in our graduating classes, but I still wouldn't guess it to be very high. It takes a certain type of student to be able to
Absolutely.
do this, and those typically are the ones who are uniquely prepared. But for my oldest son, just with DE, he didn't have an associate's degree, he didn't go through a pathway, but just with DE and AP credit was started as a second semester sophomore, and it still took him 4 years to graduate from Virginia Tech. And I think it was the maturity. So, and I don't even mean like he's immature, because I know this is being recorded. I mean, educational
be
maturity.
watching.
You know, I mean, you're just, are you really ready to go out now? I mean,
Life
he's an
mature.
engineer. Would he have been ready at 19? I don't think so, but was he ready at 23? Yes.
I do think you're right, though. I think the kids that can pull this off do
It's a
have a
rare-
different level
Yes.
That's
of
right.
maturity,
Readiness,
because you cannot pull it off if you don't have it.
It
No,
takes a
it's
lot.
of
It's
work.
a lot, and
Yeah.
it's hard.
Lot of
And
work
it's not as
ethic.
easy as what it seems to
No.
be.
Yeah,
Exactly.
sounds easy.
I mean, I found it challenging even putting together the pathway that correlates what's available or what is needed for the New River associate's degree and what we offer and how it all relates. It takes a lot. It takes our thinking power with folks from New River to put that together. It's going to take another level of student to look at that and interpret it with a guidance counselor and with a parent or some other adult mentor to figure that all out. Those kids who figure that out and get it done, we're happy that we're able to at least provide the opportunity for kids to get
Yeah.
part of that done.
Right.
Right.
I think that's important to have the
Yeah.
But
opportunity.
I like the perspective of it.
So while we're having this conversation, let's go back to the ACE program. As a
Yes, ma'am.
Prime example. I had a conversation with one of our former students who just graduated from UVA, first generation, about the challenges that come, especially being first generation college student, and the program that he was working with to help prepare students for that and help guide them through the process of college. And part of that conversation came up during one of our summer summits, talking about the ACE program from the folks at New River, talking about how we keep those children motivated because they don't understand how the process works. So I think that's something that we might want to follow up with one of our former students to figure out how we put that in place in Montgomery County to help support our students.
Well, and do you remember when we talked about this years ago, and you shared with me that little fold-out thing that you gave? Because one of my concerns was a first student in your family, by the time, PSATs were over, by the time I go, oh my gosh, and there were so many things that had passed by that, I didn't go to college, that if you're not aware of your first child, you don't know, and you've missed, and you didn't do, and you could have done, and you had a little fold out. You remember that?
Yes.
You gave it to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was like
to me,
a roadmap for a parent.
Roadmap.
exactly, roadmap.
we
for
What you
a
can
parent.
expect
I
and
mean,
what you can do to help your kid.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and because there's all that information in the counselor's office, but at the time, you gotta go and you gotta find it yourself. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, I'm just saying that a lot of times that's hard to do.
I
And if
really
you don't know
learned
what
it-
you're looking for, you can't go find
I
it.
really learned it when I went through it with my kids, more
Yeah,
than,
I
more
mean,
than telling
it's-
other people how to do it.
Exactly, so it's,
Or do we have a way of putting that out there so?
Yes, schools, high
Some
schools,
parents
and
don't
it's
even
much
know
better
what
than
to
it
ask.
once was.
I know
high schools
Blacksburg
have
High School
those
does
nights,
a,
those
Right.
college nights where they
Right.
get
Yeah.
people, now they're not very well attended.
Yeah, see,
Right.
that's what I.
And again, that's
It's-
one of those things to where, life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And
We
I'm
have,
not
we
saying
have
that
FAFSA
that's.
nights for like how to fill them out. We get people to come in and tell you all the little nuances of FAFSA. And there are still a lot of people out there who are willing to pay a company to do their FAFSA. And I refused to do that. I went to the FAFSA nights.
Right.
And I did it myself and it found that was very easy. And
Yeah, I
then
just
having gone
fumbled
through
through
it,
it myself. I was
I made
like-
a little cheat sheet and I started sharing that with parents.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys remember, I attended I think it was a VSBA breakout session and reported on, maybe it might be a couple years ago, so 2 or 3 years ago, so I don't know if Ms. Parton would remember it, but, and I could go back and look it up in my notes, but I believe it was Loudoun County that had done a program called AP for All. And this, what you guys were talking about, what Ms. Franklin and Ms. Bond are talking about, kind of reminds me of that. And I'm seeing maybe some things we can use here for something like that. But the overarching idea was that, you know, AP, and I would say it, you know, to update it for today, say AP and DE even, isn't, you know, it's not just for, you know, for certain communities, certain demographics, or what, it's for everybody, right? And they went through a whole process and reported on where basically, you know, what I took away from it is that, you know, a lot of times you know, in education, we identify these kids. These are the gifted kids. Or these are the kids that are going
Right.
to, you know, go do all this great stuff. They're the kids that are going to go do AP. And, you know, they were literally talking about, you know, kids that were maybe even identified on the other end of the spectrum. This is the troublemaker or whatever. In elementary school, by the time those kids get to high school, they have these interests, they have this ability, and they have the ability to, you know, to do these AP classes and these DE classes and do that. So, yeah, it'd be a good thing to revisit, I think.
So that's not what I was talking about. What I'm talking about is how we prepare our students, and this was shared with the folks from New River. You get into school, and all of a sudden, you're failing tests.
Yes.
You don't know how to navigate, how to get help, how to get tutors, when you're supposed to meet with your teachers to be able to support themselves, and the next thing you know, they've just dropped out. Because at home, there's no one who may have gone through that to be able to guide them,
Yes.
to be able to keep them encouraged. That's what I'm talking about. And this is what this young man was talking about, learning the hard way himself.
Yes.
And then this program that's been developed to help students understand how to navigate the process, how to keep them engaged and encouraged, even to the point of, I need some place to live because, you know, this is what's going on with my life, right? How to look out and find those resources to support them through that first step out of the house.
I actually knew that's what you were talking about. I know we got off on a tangent, but it's very close to home to me. I struggled in college when I got away because it is all of a sudden all this freedom. You have classes. Some days you have 2 classes, and then all this unstructured time, and it's easy for it to get away from you, and to have nobody to talk to about that, or be a first-generation college student and not be able to turn to your parents and say, "Hey, how did you manage this?" That's tough.
I guess that's kind of where I was headed with what I was talking about, is that I feel that a lot of students aren't prepared for what's ahead, and that I'd love to see, as we do this in the future, expand courses next year, that we start really focusing on life skills that students need to be able to be prepared to do things like, this sounds, luckily my children have left the room, and they didn't even know how to write a,
Recorded.
no, they didn't even know how to write a check, you know, how to do just the basic functions that we take for granted. And I think that, I know they take the economics finance virtual class, but I'll be honest, that class, I don't know how much they really glean from that. But really, life skills, how to take care of yourself, how to find a place to live, how to pay your rent, how to deal with, if you're going to college, what are you going to have to deal with, how to do your FAFSA. Your parents don't have to do it for you. You can do it yourself. These are all things, but it's a lot to learn. And that was what my concern was, and you graduate with you're going to become a junior and you don't even understand the basics. So, I think there are a lot of kids that graduate like that, be they going off to college or just going into any other kind of profession, vocation. And I think we need to really start focusing on that, because I think that's something we've always assumed they've figured it out, but they haven't.
It's been on the forefront for years. Then they came up with this life skills class, and they wanted to put it in at 8th grade level. We got to start them early. That's too early.
No, absolutely.
I mean, kids ain't even
Are you
interested.
kidding?
But
I thought 8th
no.
graders.
And I'm kind of going, you're kidding me, right? It needs to be, the old juniors are too late. No, it's not. They're not even thinking about life until that point. But and having a college student, Penny's actually very, very right, because online courses people will say, oh, yeah, come and I'll help you when she had accounting. I'm not, that's why they have online banking, because, and I have an accountant because I have no idea. There was no one to help her, no one.
Well,
And,
these online courses, there is
you know,
someone, because they work for us.
Yeah.
These online courses,
Yeah.
which is
but
great.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
what she was saying, like having someone to help,
Right.
it is hard, but then again, they do keep hunting until they find what they need, I mean, that's.
So, an idea that I would have, based on just my initial thought, is we have this awesome program in all 4 high schools now, where they have intervention and enrichment time, at least twice a week. And some schools have it more. That would be a great enriching activity for our schools to offer, for students to be able to go and to learn about the things that they're going to encounter in college, whether they stay local or move away. And so maybe that would be something that our schools would be interested in, our guidance counselors participating in, and actually developing some kind of program at our 4 high schools to offer during the enrichment time. Because it's built in the school schedule already, and it's pretty free to do what they want. And that would be a great skill to learn. One thing I want to ask now, all of our associate's degrees through New River require that students take the
SDV 100.
SDV 100. SDV 100,
That's really college survival skills.
Right.
But my understanding is that it's very specific to New River.
right.
It
So-
is. It goes over Blackboard and.
Right.
and
I don't know that
all
it's
of
the
that.
kind of survival skills.
Right.
Right.
yeah.
So let's talk about that as an administrative team as well.
And bringing in like recent graduates to come talk to kids
Yeah,
about
I
it,
think that's a
I would
good
think
idea.
more powerful. I mean, when I tried to explain my college experience to my own children, they were like, yeah, that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But then they come back,
They're having the
they're
same
all grown
experience.
now, and they all go, yeah, I should have listened.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna send you all the information, contact information
Yeah,
from
please
this young
do.
man,
Yeah.
because he is engaged with this on the national level,
Oh,
how
wow.
we
All
support
right.
students.
Okay. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Maybe something any student going to college, we rotate them through that enrichment every
Yeah,
week.
I think that's a
And not
fabulous idea.
necessarily college, just.
Any kind of,
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
even if
Life
they're going,
Life after.
like
Uh-huh.
after high school.
So, just a couple more comments.
Yes.
You mentioned experimentally trying to use some Google, not just software probably, but
Oh, yeah.
Swivel,
Swivel,
yeah.
yes.
Swivel.
Yeah, and things like that. And I am, within reason, I guess, but I'm a big fan of using the technology to kind of bridge that geographical gap, because I think I'm seeing, of course, I've been seeing that for the last 15 to 20 years in my job. And I we talk about life skills. I mean, that's a life skill. I think in some ways it's a life skill that kids need. So, being able to use some of the virtual tools that are available and that they'll be expected to use at many colleges, I think is another way of preparing them even as they take another class. So I'm a fan of seeing that. And then I really like, one thing that struck me on this is, when this got sent out earlier this week, is looking at, and it's great to see all these classes. Then I got down to Eastmont, and I was just like, wow, that's a lot of extra choices, right? And so I like the way, I like the idea of offering the choices as a way to basically gauge where the interest is.
There's no way all of those classes
Sure,
will make
and
it,
I
so.
understand, yeah, and that
But
was
the
my
fact
first
that we're
question,
able to
right? How are we
offer
doing
them-
that, right?
We
But-
offer them with confidence because we have the qualified teachers to offer it.
Yes.
But will those teachers teach all of those? There's no way.
Yeah,
So it's providing more choice.
yeah.
We're also going to use the registration process to see in places like Eastmont and Auburn, if students sign up for courses that don't make in their school, there's space in other schools. They can swivel into that class. They could be at East Montgomery High School, and teach. The teacher would be right there on live camera through their Chromebook and actually participate in the class. We've already done this. We tested this last year with one student who was in Montgomery Central and was a Blacksburg High School student and taking classes that were not offered at Montgomery Central. And he completed dual enrollment classes while at Montgomery Central through the swivel. Participated, one he did live, and one he did recorded. And what we want to do now is to expand that to our smaller schools, where the number one reason that our students, like at Eastmont, do not take some of these classes is they don't want to travel, obviously to their other schools. And
Or
so,
they can't travel.
Or they
because they
can-
cannot, right. And this too, you might hear a lot of questions about our high school schedules. This is also a reason that high schools, our 4 high schools, need to have schedules that are somewhat similar, so everyone
can do them.
can actually take offerings that are, that
Don't get me started.
Yeah, so yeah, that is a question that
Right.
you may get often about our high school schedules. But that's why we have had to do some shifting with some of our schedules to be, with the idea that we're going to offer some of this to these students. So,
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, next, legislative priorities. The VSBA, we approved legislative priorities last year. This year, we talked about whether we should or not. And we're going ahead and moving forward with this. Basically, what we did is we took our legislative priorities from last year. We have placed in here a red line version. Anything that is lined out are things that have been passed or dealt with at the state level. Anything that's been added are things that are relevant for us that we have taken from the VSBA page of priorities. And, just asking you to look at that, and at the next meeting, we'll ask for you to approve those. So if you haven't had time to read those, or you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me the next couple of weeks to ask about those if we need to make any revisions, based on this. We're going to Richmond next week, and a few of us will be meeting with our legislators. Those meetings are about 15 minutes. That's about it.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. And then if you're lucky, you get to talk
get to
about
talk.
what you want to talk about, not what they want to talk about. And it really isn't a time to lay out our legislative priorities for them. Now we can send it to them, later on.
Yeah.
But, of course, we always try to get in some words as to what our top priorities are. And I can assure you that one thing that I will be pushing for is a raise for teachers this year, and be talking about that to our legislators and not waiting to the second year of the budget. So that would be one thing that we'll be talking about, is more funding for teacher raises. It
It should just become a standard at this point.
It should,
You
but
know,
we thought it
it's
would
just-
this year, but it didn't, unfortunately. And so that would be one thing that will be the first on the list, and then I will remind them to help us push the legislation through for the Corps cadet licensing programs. And, if you have anything else you want us to mention, if we can, please let me know.
So I have some questions about this in general. In the past, have we sent this to our legislators once we approved it?
We did, or we carried with our hand and passed on when we entered the room, or we send them electronically at 1 year. So just the last couple years that I can remember. I don't know what was done in the past.
Yes, in the past, we
Yeah.
would give it to them and send it to them. One of the things that I brought up for a couple of years in the past was that we don't wait until they get ready to go into session, or even November, when we hit them while they're here
When we-
in
Summer,
Right.
the
almost.
summer, and
Right.
sit down, and when they're more accessible,
Yeah.
and have this conversation. And sometimes maybe we do it 2 or 3 times to drill it in,
Well,
Well, I
and
will say
I think that's important.
We did it.
To note, hold on.
Yeah,
Because they
we did
told
it. We
us
tried.
that a few years ago when we went there. You need to tell us what your priorities are and what you need from us before session starts.
Absolutely.
So, which the legislative breakfast, is meant at that time frame to help with that. But unfortunately, we rarely get to talk to the legislators. I mean, sometimes we get a good group of them that come, and sometimes we don't. It's hit or miss. And so, like Ms. Franklin just said, we need to be doing this much sooner, which we have done one time or more.
At least one time.
I think one
Right.
time we did.
After they
we
told us that, we sent it earlier. Again, it's not us talking to them and having that conversation. It's really us sending this, this document. And sometimes the document just doesn't have a lot of weight to it.
You know, maybe one thing we can do as we move forward, because there are a few times we're in front of the legislators anyway. One time I'm in front of the legislators is during the summer. There's a legislative meeting in Salem where the superintendents meet with all the legislators.
Oh.
So maybe it's something that we could add to our summer retreat agenda, just to get these approved, so I can hand those out starting then. You know, during that meeting, and we just have it, we have it early at the beginning of the year, hand it then, and then wherever we encounter them, because we're always encountering them, you know, sometimes unexpected, you know, that we give it to them, hand it to them, mail it to them, inundate them with our priorities, and just start at the beginning of the year. And then we have the legislative breakfast this year was great in terms of the food. The presentation was amazing.
I like that.
I mean, we had a
presentation.
wonderful presentation. If you haven't seen it, we'll share it with you. But it was a point-on presentation about our priorities here in Montgomery County Schools in terms of what we need Richmond to do. And unfortunately, no one was there to see it. Now,
Only
the-
two.
well,
Only two aides.
there are two aides
Two
there, but when I say no one, I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's-
mean
No
the
real
elected-
legislator.
the actual
Elected, yeah.
legislators, yeah. And so yeah, I'm for you, and you guys, if you all want to maybe tack this on to the retreat this summer,
Yeah.
and just go ahead and, because they're not changing a lot.
Yeah.
I'd say pretty much we know what, you know, I think we know what we want. It's the same thing that's needed. You know, we have rising enrollment. You know, we need to recruit teachers. We need more pay for teachers. We need more staff members. Capital improvements are out there as well that, you know, we need help with that. I mean,
Really, no
there's some basic
unfunded
things.
mandates.
Yeah, and then and unfunded mandates that are constantly coming at us.
Which I'm sure will happen with the guidance counselors and mental health.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
As important as this is to us, and I'm not sure if we can do this or not, but, you know, this would be another meeting for us, which is okay with me, but can we not schedule a meeting with them as a board and go over this?
they're not going to come.
In their
Yeah.
off time?
Right.
That's the thing. They're not going to,
Summertime, yeah.
you know, getting them to come is the biggest challenge. You know, that's what we just did. We scheduled a meeting with them a few weeks ago,
Right.
and they didn't come. And how many RSVPs did you get?
It was at least 4, I think 5.
You got 4 or 5 RSVPs saying they were going to be there, and it was a no-show from any of them. You know, that's the only thing, not that I'm being discouraged.
No,
for
no,
them.
that's okay. I just, you know, I was trying to think of something over and
Yeah.
additional other than just our normal scheduled, like, legislative breakfast. If we kept harping on them that we need to meet with them, we need to talk to them, they need to know these needs, you know.
I guess can we
if-
invite
I
them?
just think they hear that so
summertime?
much. It's no, to me, when we talk to them even at the breakfast, it's, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what I get. That's the way I feel. That's why I'm like, you know, I mean, I just think it's redundant. It's the same, and then even sometimes even a little bit, they come across a little defensive, you know? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, and it does, and, you know, it does depend on the legislator. Like I truly do feel like Chris Hurst has listened to us more than anyone in the past X number of
Because
years.
he's new to it. He's new to it, that's
Because
why.
because he really listens.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we can do then legislative breakfast. Obviously, our students won't be in school to fix such a breakfast, but in July,
Would it be better if
June
we did it at a
timeframe,
different time
we
frame,
can
at a
invite
different
them when they're
time,
in
where
the
more of them
Start
could
of the same,
attend, maybe? I don't know.
When was the last one? Wasn't it
Did
right
we
around
send that
election?
presentation to all those legislators who did
Yes.
not attend?
Yes.
We did.
When was it, when
And as
was
a
the
matter of fact,
legislative
the
breakfast?
aides who were
November.
there reached out
It
to
was
us
right around
immediately
election
and
day,
asked.
though,
Okay,
wasn't
Okay,
it?
didn't hear
It was
everybody
the
at one
same-
time.
It was after the election.
I couldn't make it because I had something going on with the election. I was just wondering if that's,
You know, what
I
did
think
it
it was
say?
13 or
2 weeks
something.
after the
November.
election,
It's
right
2 weeks-
before the
was the
conference.
day before the
day
conference.
oh, it was
before.
before the conference.
So it's the
Okay,
week
that's
before
why I asked.
Thanksgiving, yeah.
Okay.
So let's, you know, of course, we've been doing it at that time because it is the Bring Your Legislator to School month.
It was the 19th, and that's the ironic
So-
part, because VSBA, Board of Supervisors, everyone gets their legislative priorities in November, December, January timeframe, even though they all suggest we should talk to legislators in summertime. So there's a mismatch there, because VSBA got theirs, November timeframe, and the Board of Supervisors got there in December meeting. I mean, everybody does it that timeframe, but they suggest actually the best timeframe to reach out. I guess you just carry the same priorities
Did they
from.
really change that much
Yeah,
year?
yeah, I mean, that's the thing, you can tell them, same thing that you proved the year before,
Yeah.
summertime probably,
I think next week, we
and not
can
to worry
take,
about.
even though we sent it, we ought to hand them a copy of our presentation from the breakfast. That'd be a good thing
Yeah.
to hand to them.
And I know one year we even went through, there was a lot of work for your staff, went through every bill
That's right.
and picked which ones we wanna, ask them to
Emphasize.
emphasize, and we brought them. And I mean, they did appreciate it. I don't know how much, it meant to them, but, I mean, we even tried that, every single 300 bills. I think your staff looked at it and said, "These bills are important for us," and
Or
we
these
carried
could
those.
be very
Or,
damaging.
there are definitely no nos. I mean, we've been trying different things, but summertime, run into them is the best thing. I mean, everybody says that, but. All right.
Okay, all right, next, the 2021 and 21-22 calendar proposals. Tonight, Ms. Whitaker and Mr. Knott will present the proposed calendars for those years. My proposed calendar is the one that it almost mirrors what we have done the past 2 years. We sent out 3 calendars, and the third, we sent out 3 choices for each semester. And the choice that was chosen by those who participated was the calendar that we pretty much currently use. And Ms. Whitaker and Mr. Knott will explain how that went with the calendar committee and all that good stuff.
So we had 24 people on the calendar committee this year, and that included representatives from all 4 strands. It included parents, it included teachers and administrators. We do want to thank those individuals that helped us with this, because it was a difficult task to do, lots of opinions to be heard, and it was good to have the conversations that we had, and to get to where we can present a 2-year cycle to you guys tonight. The calendar committee met 4 times between September and November. In our first calendar survey, we had 3,477 people respond, giving us critical information or data to help us set parameters for the committee work that we did. The parameters included start date, length and time of fall break, and include discussion on early release days. And then it also, there was an additional question this year for staff only regarding the number of work days that we built into the calendar. The committee reviewed the survey responses, and we developed 2 calendars, options for consideration to give to Dr. Meyer. The current calendar was added as an additional option as well. And those 3 calendars were then put into a second survey, and they were released on January 9th, and they concluded on on December 9th, and concluded on the 3rd of January. This survey, like Dr. Meyer said, provided 3 options, both first semester and second semester, for our stakeholders to consider.
I'll click on the button. Okay, there we go. All right. And so for our second thank you. Our second calendar survey, we had 4,824 responses from the community. In order to collect those and to encourage individuals to participate, we sent multiple communications out, direct communication to parents, to students in grades 6 through 12, to employees, and then multiple social media pushes to encourage individuals to complete the survey. Respondents, as Danny said, were asked to select from the 3 options for calendar 1 for semester 1, and then 3 for semester 2 as well. and the option for each semester with the highest response was then taken to Dr. Meyer in consideration to bring forward to you. Each calendar had the same number of days in first and second semester, so we were easily able to put those two together.
So calendar A, all three of the calendar options that we have here have a school starting date of August 12th and have winter break starting with an early release day on December 22nd. There are some differences within these three calendars. Option A has fall break aligned with Columbus Day. Option B has fall break aligned with Election Day. And then option C mirrors, like we've said, what we're currently doing with fall break aligned with the parent-teacher conference schedule. In second semester, there are some similarities. All options include 5 inclement weather makeup days, and the embedded makeup days, with the embedded makeup days, the last possible day for school for all three calendars is May 28th. Option A has a starting date of January 5th, while options B and C have starting dates on January 6th. Option A includes the potential for 2 full weeks of spring break, one in March that aligns with Virginia Tech's spring break, and one in April with snow days, snow makeup days or inclement weather makeup days aligned with both of those 2 weeks. Option B includes 1 day off in March that's aligned with Virginia Tech's spring break, and the potential for 1 full week of spring break in April that also has inclement weather makeup days during that week, as well as at the end of the school year. Option C, again, mirrors what we're currently doing and includes 2 days before Easter and 2 days after Easter for spring break, and then snow makeup days, they all, or inclement weather makeup days, all occur at the end of the school year.
So the questions that we asked on that second survey, it was a very succinct survey. So the first question we asked was what the individual's relationship was to Montgomery County Schools. As you can see, we got a really great response rate. Although the teacher number looks small on there, you have to keep in mind we had over 4,800 responses. So we had, I think, 723 of our teachers respond, so that was a really great response rate there. 1,784 students, 2,219 parents, 723 teachers. Support staff was about 385, and community members who did not associate in any of those other categories was 96. The next question we asked them was what community they lived or worked in, and we did have individuals from all communities who were responding to our survey. I did not balance that against the population in each community. I figured you guys have a good grasp on those community populations. So then we looked at preferred for semester 1, which of the options were preferred. And so you can see for option 1, calendar C, which is aligned with the current calendar, was the response that was chosen, with 40.99% of individuals choosing that calendar. And for preferred option, semester number 2 was also calendar C, with 47.95% of individuals selecting that calendar. Therefore, we have Dr. Meyer bringing for you for a calendar recommendation and consideration those 2 calendars. As Danny shared, I think you shared earlier, we did make one change.
No, I did not.
So there's one change you want to note, which is in this year's calendar, the day that Election Day fell on, there was a gap between when that fall break was and then a week and then Election Day. And so when we made that calendar, see, we mirrored it exactly. And what we noticed was we were going to have kids out on a Thursday, Friday, and then come back one day for Monday, and then be out for Election Day on Tuesday. So the calendar that you have before you does move that Thursday to the Monday so that it's a Friday, Monday, Tuesday break around election instead of having the students come back for one day in the middle. That is a change that was not what was voted on. The other thing you'll notice that's a little bit different from what you've seen in the past, Mr. Knott shared with you that we asked teachers a question about work days. And so that question was whether or not individuals wanted more work days embedded in the calendar, because we very often hear at the beginning of the year, we don't have enough time to get done all of the things that we need to do.
And you know, our teachers are reporting 190 days and then have unassigned days where they are doing their work because we know that there's a lot of extra work and grading and things that they're doing. We were surprised that it was about 50-50 for people who wanted to add days in and people who didn't. And so what we wanted to do is just clarify for individuals at the start of the year and then days throughout the year. The building is going to be open and available for your use. If you want to come in early before school starts, you are certainly able to do that. That does not mean they're going to have to report on the different days. They still have that freedom within the calendar, but it is something that looks a little bit different there. But it'll make sure the buildings are ready to go for them 1 week before they typically are. What questions do you have?
I don't know if it's a question, but I've always been against the spring break because when we first started doing it, nobody liked it. Parents, teachers, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, everybody loves it, let's do it, let's do it. And I'm going, wait a minute, we did it. And I mean, but it was rainy, it was cold, and the only people that really benefited from it was maybe someone who might have had spouses that worked in an atmosphere that could take off, but the average, and the only concern I have being a business owner, being a parent, I see how hard it is every time we have these long, in some of the calendars, I mean, there's a week in October and a week in November. I mean, that's hard for parents. We've got to look at that. That's what makes our system. And I think we just have to be careful for those kinds of things. And with voting day, I see what you're saying, but it's kind of like, okay, why add Thursday or Friday? Why not just have Monday and Tuesday if that's the case? I mean, and
Well, at the end of the day, it's the same amount of days, no matter how, it's still 180 days.
I hear you, but sometimes the way it's laid out can be difficult because looking at just the one calendar I had pulled up that I could kind of really see real good. Like I said, it was only 2 weeks in between the 2 weeks of scan, and I'm going, that's miserable.
That was my question.
You're talking about the first option?
We've got fall break, and then we've got 2 weeks, and then we've got another week for Thanksgiving, and then we literally have 2.5 weeks, and then we've got another 2 weeks for Christmas.
Yeah,
So basically, they're going to school 2 weeks off, 2 weeks off. I mean, that makes it
hard.
difficult, right?
My understanding was that there were, teachers were actually pushing for more of the fall break earlier than that week. Because that is tough, to have a few weeks. The kids are out for 4 days, 5 days, and then they come back, and then they go out, and that is difficult. I think the concept of fall break is that, at least my understanding of the concept, because when I was teaching, we didn't have fall break. I mean, it's a relatively new thing. Is there a lot of time goes by between August 12th to November, I can't see that up there, but like 25th or whatever, and the only day off is Labor Day for teachers. And then there's Election Day now, and that we didn't have Election Day either, so that's new also. Election Day used to be we had school during Election Day. So I think that was the whole concept of fall break, was to have a time in there for teachers to have a little break, for students to have a little break.
Okay, well, like I said,
But
Monday and Tuesday, that's 2 days.
where it is now, that doesn't necessarily
To me, some of the
fit the
sessions-
need of what I think the whole
Well,
idea
and
is.
For me, some of the sessions I've attended at some of the conferences are, we need to encourage our students to be in school and not miss and not go on vacations, and don't encourage our kids to, oh, it's just kindergarten, and so come back and miss. And I mean, we're missing weeks at a time. So which do we want?
This calendar is actually pretty, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I'm just, and when I want to elaborate on the spring break, I'm all about the Easter break. When we did the whole week kind of thing, like I said, it was cold, it was bad weather, nobody could go anywhere. And I mean, it was great for employees, but it wasn't so good for families and students, and that's 10,000 of our, I mean, it's not a little area, so.
And you're right, Ms. Kess, regarding the fall break, and in terms of the spring break, the last cycle of calendars we did, that was actually a question, was did they want to extend it? And they did not want to do the full week. There was overwhelmingly,
So that's what
they
we
did
got.
not want to do the full week at that time. And so that's kind of where this calendar came from. The fall break was very much a response from teachers requesting that because it was the end of that grading period. They wanted an opportunity to do those parent-teacher conferences and then to kind of be prepared. Their instructional planning time is given to them every day, but the reality is it is very taken with meetings and with other things that they have to do during that time. Very often, they do not get to sit down and plan except in the evenings and weekends when they're doing that at home. And so that was a request of theirs, was to have a day to actually, have time in the school where they could do that.
This calendar is actually pretty balanced in terms of the number of weeks, because I did count. From the August start date to fall break is actually 10 weeks exactly. And January start to spring break is 11 weeks. So the instruction time in both semesters are the same. And each one has actually the August to fall, only Labor Day, and then 2 K through 8 ERs, early releases. And the January to, Easter break or spring break, 2 holidays there, Martin Luther King and President's Day, but then 2 K through 8. Yeah. So I think the numbers are pretty even. And then the fall break is 3.5 days, and spring break is 4.5 days, so that's even there too. Only crunch time that you were
thinking of
mentioning
all of
is
those
November,
breaks.
December time, and that is
Back to
that is even within itself balanced because the 2.5 weeks before Thanksgiving and 3 weeks after Thanksgiving before Christmas. I don't think you can really fix that area much, and some years, especially Thanksgiving and Christmas, are already so close together. I don't think you can,
We did not put moving Thanksgiving as an option on the
Yeah.
calendar survey for this year.
So I was actually pretty impressed that, and then I think 4 weeks after 4 or 5 weeks after the spring break becomes the end of the school year. So in terms of the instruction divided for the kids, pretty even. I was impressed when I count the days. Pretty even calendar. So the long break is, no matter what, it's from the school start, and the fall break is 10 weeks. When you don't have the fall break, that's even gets longer. I think that's the time teachers were concerned about that there's no break for anyone to take it, little.
Let me say this. This calendar that I'm proposing that we accept is the one we've done for the last 2 years. And it's the one that folks chose in the actual survey.
That was going to be my question. So these are the ones that were chosen
Yes.
by, and the majority of the responses were parents
Yes.
and students.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The majority were parents and students who
Yes.
replied. They wanted what we've been doing the last 2 years. They want to keep doing what we've been doing.
And I guess
You know,
I
and I
never
often-
paid attention,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same one. And I often say this about calendars. Calendars are difficult in school divisions you'll never get a consensus. I always say folks want to start later, finish sooner, and have more breaks in between. At the end of the day, guys, we're going to go 180 days. Teachers are going to come into school 190 days, and so I think folks are at a point where they don't want to continue to change what we're
Agree.
doing and just get into a pattern of
A consistency
of
that
what
you can count on.
exactly.
So can I'd like to say something since I was on the,
Yeah.
participated in the committee, and I think hearing Dana and Sue and Jamie talk, I personally believe that your hunch is right. I mean, you have a hunch on this, that this is difficult for parents, and it is difficult for parents, and I've been giving board reports that I have been on the committee. This is the second time that I've been on the committee. And the reason that I'm on the committee is that I was asked, I get asked lots of questions, lots of complaints, especially 4 years ago, before we did the last, we definitely made some big improvements, I think, 2 years ago. And I do think that we have room. I know that that's not everybody necessarily thinks that, but I think there's room for more improvement, and I always like to see if we can make more improvement. So with that in mind, one of the things that I've been reluctant to be critical, but I think that I would like to point out some things in a hopefully constructively critical way. And that's that I think that our process, it is a difficult process and it is contentious. And the first thing I'd like to say, and I agree, echo what Danny said, my thanks to the every time I go through this, I learn so much from the teachers that come. I mean, there's things that even administrators have not considered. So, I mean, for me personally, I think it's key that we have input from the teachers on that. But, my main takeaway was that we don't take into account the input of our community as effectively as we should. And one of the big problems is that we're not getting buy-in in the process. My criticism isn't necessarily aimed at any person or people, but the process, I think, is a little bit broken. And Jamie, you said we have about 10,000. I'm going to use very round numbers here, so don't fight me on 1,000 or 2,000. But, we do have about 10,000 students, and I think probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,000 to 10,000 parents is my guess, right? So about 20,000 people when you look at that community piece of it. So I would expect a committee that properly took that input to have more parents on it. And we may have started off with 3 or 4 parents. It's hard to get parents to come to these committees to keep coming, right? Yeah. And so, and that's part of what I participated in these discussions, but I didn't try, despite what maybe some of you may have heard, I didn't necessarily try to push my own personal view on this is the way I think it should be, but what I was hoping to see out of the committee was a work towards the middle on things. And it was interesting, in that first survey that came out, we had data that it was broken up by employees and the community. It was basically, administrators, teachers, other staff, and then students and parents were joined together. And if you had A and B, you expect, sometimes for instructional reasons, you're just going to end up where the teachers say this is where it needs to be, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense, and that's what we do. But a lot of the stuff does come down to preference, and sometimes I would expect there to be somewhere in the middle, maybe tilted one way or the other. And what alarmed me in the third meeting that we had when we looked at that data, and again, I think this is a criticism of the process, not of necessarily individuals, is that, the community was here, the employees were here, and what the committee consensus recommendation wasn't in the middle, it was actually further away from what the community wanted. And I think that that's a problem, and I think we do have constraints on the time frame that we have to work with. I don't know that we're so constrained that we can't ask questions or wrestle with a few of these things. But the fall break is a mystery to me. Honestly, I wish that's one that, part of the problem is because of the way that we went through the process, we kind of answered big questions first, and then we went and, I think by the time, Danny, you were creating calendars, the committee was almost done with their work. Like we weren't looking at real calendars and saying, oh, but we have this, and so what do we do here? And so it is difficult, but with that backdrop, I do think that there's plenty of other process issues that I don't want to bring up here and now. Maybe we can talk about that if we talk about how we might want to change things in the future on how we do things. But this is something that's important to people, and it's one of the only things that it's a decision we make that directly affects everybody, directly. A lot of the stuff that we do, picking textbooks and hiring and things like that, indirectly 2 or 3 levels, but this directly affects people and they're passionate about it. And I think at the very minimum, we need to try to find a little bit of in between.
And when you say it directly impacts everybody, you're so right. It impacts grandparents, parents, business owners, employees. It impacts everybody, not just educators. And all are solely important.
I'm thinking we forgot somebody in that list.
Students.
The students?
Students,
But all we're talking, but we're all talking about what's best for the parents and what's best for the teachers. What's best for students? Do students need a break in the fall? Do students need to have 4 days off in April and then come back and take SOLs and exams. And I think there's a lot, we need to think about how it affects students too. I understand, I've been a parent, and I am a parent, not been, and I've had to deal with this as a teacher and as being a parent, and when you have time off, and it is hard, but I see the struggles that students go through when they're in and out of the school, and then January comes and there's snow days in February, and then all of a sudden now then we talk about, oh, let's take a break in March. It's like, whoa, it's a lot. It's a struggle for students to stay focused, and I think that's what we have to really think about too when we do it.
Yeah, let me tell you how this fall break came about. It came about by asking teachers what they wanted. We heard it was a long haul, because we started school so early, in August, to get to the Thanksgiving break.
And it's already 10 weeks with the fall break.
And
that means probably
It is a
13,
long haul.
14.
It's a long way. And
Especially
so-
the beginning of the school year, because
Right.
it is, students are struggling and to get adjusted
Attack
and.
there instead of.
So
starting somewhere.
I listened to
That's
teachers.
what I say.
Well, hold on, let me say this, guys. I listened to teachers. This was my suggestion 2 years ago to put this in. I remember meeting with school leadership teams, which involve teachers. When I got back after that fall break, they were so happy to have that break, where they didn't have to wait until Thanksgiving. Out of everything we've done, I probably have more compliments on that than anything in the past 4 years. It was just something they really felt good about, being able to, okay, now I think I can make it to Thanksgiving and then to the winter time. It really was a positive thing. And even this year, same thing. I heard a lot of positive comments about that fall break and them having that time. And see, we also give the teachers a time to do a flex conference day. They can do them at nights and have that Thursday off this past year, or they could work that Thursday, and do conferences in. And so, but I'm telling you guys, it was huge for teachers and probably students as well, to have that fall break. I mean, it really, really was. It meant more than it would mean if you were to just start school a day or two later. I really believe that, guys. I really, really
I hear what
Well,
you're saying, but
but-
there is 2 days off and 2 early releases before
High school
the
doesn't
end
have,
of October.
Yeah, but high school.
high school doesn't have early release.
Okay.
have a couple.
So they,
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
mean,
summarized it a minute
2
ago.
weeks.
Yeah, they are very equal.
There's like
actually.
3 weeks and then a day off, and then 3 more weeks, and then, so
but the
there's
early
like-
release are work days, right? Generally, you're doing parent-teacher
Teachers
conferences
time
and.
I didn't say they didn't.
Right.
I never said it's not needed or it doesn't, but, that's part of the reason I feel like I'm on the board, to look out for the needs of the other people that make up the whole group and the whole system. So this is my job to have a conversation about looking at it another way. That's going to help the whole community. It doesn't mean anybody's not needing it or doesn't need it, but okay, so parents need days too. They don't always get them. So, it's, I'm just saying, we've got them all lumped at one place. I'm not saying they don't need them, I'm just saying maybe we need to rethink where they are. If there's such a break needed for the fall, then why don't we move a day to go with the October 12th? So there's 2 days in the 13th.
Now, let me say this. You guys can do this if you want. You can start playing with this thing if you want. But probably over 200 hours of our staff and our people have already sat down in a room with over 20 folks and have gone through these things. And if you all want to make these changes, you can do it, because you all have the final authority to actually make this vote, okay? But this just shouldn't pop up here,
No.
and a lot of
And
time
I
went into
I
this.
agree,
Then what-
I agree with
why-
Mark that we should consider how we do it going forward. I think the process maybe needs some thought.
I think
I don't think you can
also-
change what's been done now, though I
Well,
understand.
you can change what's been done now. I don't know how advisable it would be, like Dr. Meyer's saying.
Right.
I will say this, that for all of my I have two sets of disagreement. One set of disagreement is things the way that I'd like to see it personally, but that doesn't matter here, right? What I'm looking at is I'm looking at the data from the surveys, and you know, another criticism that I'll go ahead and share here is that I don't think we do the surveys very well. And I've heard this from many people. I've heard it from survey professionals. We ask too many questions in one question. We try to get 2 or 3 different things out of asking one question, and sometimes that becomes problematic. And what the calendar committee did was come up with 2 choices to basically, you want to go this way or you want to go that way. That helps to give they were hoping, I think, for a little bit of clarity on that. And then I think the leadership team added a 3rd choice, and what that does is for some of your choices, it bifurcates your choice. Bifurcate meaning for example, in the spring semester, the first 2 choices both have what I'm going to call university days. It's the earlier spring break, right? Which, I'd also like to say a word about that. But both of those have that, and both of them also have built-in makeup days in the middle of the year. So, there's not that much difference between those 2 when you compare it to option C. So I'm not surprised to see the results come out the way they do. So, do you look at just which one got the most votes, or do you look at the combination of A and B and say, well, I think more people want one of these 2 other things? So it does get complicated. I don't think it's quite as simple. But I think that for everything that happened, on most issues, on a lot of the things, the length and timing of winter break is something I heard so much about the first 2 years on the board. I have not heard a single person complain about that. Even teachers. I think we shortened it, which I think maybe some teachers, I heard anyway, that some teachers like it longer, but I haven't even heard a complaint from any teachers on that. So the start time, we did ask a question, as they said. That was, I don't say but there's consensus there where everybody's happy. Everyone's educated on why we start early too. I think that helps too. But I think the other thing that there was disagreement on was the half days, and I think those ended up going the right way. I think it's, for me personally, I'd like to have a little more discussion, maybe on tweaking, at least maybe spring break. Fall break it's a tough one, and to answer your question, Jamie, in the committee, I tried very hard. You basically asked, why can't we put it on Columbus Day? And that's kind of what I pushed for, because the way I interpreted it is, you're making it hard on parents anyway. I understand what Dr. Meyer is saying, that the teachers really appreciate that break as a longer break. Fine. Let's make it a little easier on parents, because there's certainly a certain percentage of parents that get Columbus Day off. You look at the survey, it's small. You look at the survey results, and it's not that many. So I guess I'm not going to fall on my sword on the fall break one. That's just a tough one, Can
I let you know on that one? We did ask that. I'm sorry, we did ask about fall break, and they did not want to take it away. So we asked in the first survey.
Who's they, Annie? I'm sorry.
All the respondents.
Okay.
Over the whole group, everybody that took that first one, they did not want to eliminate that break. So that was one of the questions that we asked them, was please provide your feedback on the length of fall break. And so it said one was keep it at 2 days, one was eliminate it, one was or eliminate the fall break and add the days to Thanksgiving break. The other was eliminate fall break and add the days to winter break. And the last was eliminate fall break and start school later. And they did not want to eliminate fall break at all.
Well,
so that's why that first survey asked that question in there in terms of what they wanted to do. The spring break, that was that first one when he went over. Those were the parameters that we asked, was do you want to extend, what do you like about the length of fall break? What do you want to do about spring break? What do you want to do about winter break? That was that first data gathering piece, was us doing that. So there were 4 different things I heard you guys ask, if I could just address those real quickly.
But hang on, I think what you just said, Annie, is not necessarily true, if I might.
Sorry,
I'm not trying to. So the data that Mr. Knott showed us in the calendar committee meeting, there was 4 choices. One of them was keep 2 days, right? And then the other 3 were eliminate, but it was eliminate but add it here, eliminate but add it there, eliminate but add it there. There was when you eliminate those days,
right
they have to
here.
go somewhere.
One question was on length and one was on timing. So
Yes.
the question on the length said,
Length
please
of fall
provide
break.
your feedback. keep it at 2 days, eliminate it and add them to Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Eliminate and add it to winter, or eliminate fall break and have it a later start date. Then the next question was on
I have
the
eliminated and add to winter break, but whatever, yeah, I mean.
start date is what the survey
Okay.
says.
But my
the-
point is, those three things together are eliminate. If you add those three things up, it is, you know, for the public, for the community, it's 59.6% versus 40% that wanted to keep it. So you're trifurcating, it's not really a length of fall, it's, people are basically
it
saying
is.
eliminate it. We're not saying make it 1 day, because really, technically speaking, fall break is really only 1 day. It's just that with this option, it got turned into 2 days, I think, for a lot of teachers, because the principals had the you know, the ability to do that. So I don't know, for me, I think it's a bit misleading to say it that way. I think we have to add up those three and say, how many people want to eliminate fall break?
Sure.
60%, right? 40% want to keep it. Whereas, but it's almost flipped when you look at the teacher data. 60% want to keep it, you know, 41.5 want to eliminate it, so.
And I'll tell you, the fall break got put in because of teachers, and I'm okay with that, because I'm telling you, at that
They're the
time of
ones
year,
spending time in schools.
that time of year is tough,
And
man.
I'm saying I'm okay with it too. I think to me, that's a concession that I'm willing to make, but I'm not willing to lengthen it. And if we are going to go to 3 days in a row, gosh, I'd really like to do something that eases it, but I just don't know what that is right now.
Okay, so I'm going to say something now. I absolutely understand what Jamie is talking about, because I hear it from folks that I work with, which are the conditions that probably the majority of folks in this county work in. And when we have these long breaks, they don't have anyone to take care of their kids. So when we're talking about what's best for students, and we have students who aren't really being supervised or are by themselves because the parent can't take off, they don't have anyone to watch their children, that's a big hardship. I might be able to do 2 days here and find someone to help me out with childcare, but to do 4 days all together, that can be a challenge. I understand teachers need a break, want to be able to get this time in to reflect on the kids coming through the door and what am I going to do next, right?
Sure.
But when we're talking about community, who are we actually reaching when we're doing these surveys? Are we actually reaching the parents who are really the ones who are left in a hard spot when we have breaks like this? No, we're not, because they don't have time to access this. They don't know where to access these surveys. So all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, what's going on, right? It may have worked great for 2, 5, 10, 20 years, but that's because we're not getting feedback from folks who it is truly causing a hardship to. And that's what Jamie is trying to say. There is a hardship to the parents, which is a hardship to our students.
Do you have a parent, I mean, all the calendars have breaks in them. They all have the same amount of breaks, it's just where they are. The, do you have the data on parent responses from each community?
Yes, I do.
What is
Christiansburg had
that?
27%, Blacksburg had 57%.
So every
Give
community
me- I want-
take the
you-
same.
But let me,
How
can
about
I
numbers?
say something about that?
But that wasn't,
Actual
no, that was
numbers.
50%,
Should we
7%
please
of all
all
the
talk at
responses.
one time, and then we can hear everything that everybody's saying, because everybody's talking at the same time, and I'm not hearing anything but a bunch of noise.
Well, I think she just finished, or somebody just finished and asked that question just now. And so,
It's been going on all night long, and we need to talk one at a time so that we understand what's being said by
The numbers are
everyone.
down. You can go down to it.
do you have that answer?
Yeah, hold on just 1 second. I'm trying to pull up. I can't read those numbers, though. I'm trying to pull it up on here so I can see it where I can expand it. All right. There we go. I can't see it any better on there, can I? You're saying how many in
Yeah,
each
actual,
community
how
or what
many
the
responses
percentage
from
was?
parents from each community, the numbers? You have a percent?
I have the percent of the respondents, yeah. So in Blacksburg, that's how they responded. Hold on. That one right there. There you go. There you go. So the percentage of those numbers of surveys, so you had 4,800 individuals completing it. Of those, 1,100 were staff or employees. So 4,700 were nobody employed by the school division that completed that survey. So that if it's 4,700 and you got 57% in Blacksburg, that's what,
Well, keep in mind that that
23
question
something.
about Blacksburg, about the communities, two things. I was surprised to see that question because this issue came up in, I don't know, Danny, if you remember, but it came up in the discussions, and I asked actually if we could put that in because, you know, I still want to briefly at least talk about the, you know, the spring break issue, but I think that affects every, you know, Virginia Tech may be located in Blacksburg, but it's the #1 employer in the county, and so I was making the point that it affects people from all over the county, and I said, let's ask people where they're from, and it was actually teachers from the more rural parts of the county that requested that we did not put that in, and I don't remember the exact reason, I don't want to misrepresent why, but I think it had to do with perception of things like that. But the problem with the question is it says, what MCPS community do you live or work in? And so Blacksburg is probably going to be overrepresented because, again, Virginia Tech is the #1 employer, and you've got people from Christiansburg, from Elson-Shawsville, from Auburn-Reiner that work there. So and it said to basically check them all. So they're going to check Auburn and they're going to check Blacksburg. So you're going to be overrepresented there anyway.
So every strand had the same responses. Every strand responded in the same exact order for those questions. Every employee group responded, or every group that was surveyed, except for the 103 people who were community members, every single answer had the same response from every group in every strand, except for 2%, which was 103 who were community members that were non-associated. Everything else was the same.
The students, how many students responded?
Students was 1,784.
1,700 students, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Many students who took an interest in responding to our surveys.
Yeah. So when we looked at that and we saw, regardless of strand, regardless of who responded, every single group picked the same choices, except for the one, which was 103 people who were community members, non-associated in any other way. So we felt like that was a pretty consistent result across those groups, across the individuals who completed it. In terms of number of parents, I think many parents have multiple children, so I think in terms, I don't know the exact number of parents that we have, but I would bet that number, many have 2, 3, 4 children in their homes. One question on the PD days was something that's a little bit different. I don't know that we need to compare our calendar to other school divisions. Most divisions have more breaks because their teachers are having assigned work days, typically at least 5 more days that they're giving breaks for in the year. And most of them are starting around where we are and ending after us because they have those extra breaks in their calendar where we're not having 5 extra work days built into those. And I think that was it. And then the other thing I wanted to say was, again, of those respondents, 4,800, 1,100 were school division employees. The remaining 3,700 were community members.
What I like to do in terms of moving forward is to bring back our recommendation for a vote at the next meeting. If you all choose not to vote for it, then you all can, have a couple options. You can make a motion to choose one of the other 2 calendars that's been presented, or then you can start working on it to make your own changes. I mean, that's pretty much it. So, but the next meeting, I'll bring my recommendation for a vote, and you all do with it what you want.
I have a question to Mark,
Yeah.
actually, or Mr. Chabaka. When you said the first survey sent, community responded a certain way, and then at the end, you did not see that applied in the calendar choice. What was the biggest thing they want in terms of fall break, no fall break, 3 days fall break, 4 days fall break?
Well, on the fall break issue, I think.
Can you generalize?
Sure. I mean, I think in the fall break issue, I think, again, at that meeting, it was mostly teachers, and I think teachers support each other. I think that's a good thing, and I think they're put in a position where they're not instructed really or encouraged. They're not going to fight it out, right? So when the elementary teachers say we need this, the high school teachers aren't going to say, you can't have that because we want this. They're going to say, yeah, you should have that, but we should also have this other thing. And so basically, we went from a survey that asked, basically, do you want 2 days or do you want to eliminate it? We ended up with 3 days as the consensus of the committee.
But the parents' wish was no fall break. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yeah. I mean,
But
again,
the 3 days was incidental because it fell along the election day.
No, but this was different. So,
Oh, okay.
so this had to do with, there was actually some discussion about the, I guess there was some, I don't want to say inequity or something, but the fact that because I think all of our schools this year, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Meyer, allowed or chose to not have the
Teacher work day, conference day
on the
Thursday.
day. They
did.
but what that meant,
Working
what
nights.
some of the elementary teachers said is what they had to do is they had to spread that out over 3 or 4 evenings, and at least the one teacher there that was vocal in a good way, basically said, that was so much work to spread that across 3 or 4 nights that I'd rather just have that day. I'd rather have the parent-teacher day back rather than a vacation
here's the
day.
deal with that.
But most people obviously don't want
Well,
that
that's-
building by building.
That was a building choice.
Yeah.
That was not
Yeah.
a calendar choice. We gave the buildings an opportunity to do that, and that is amongst them and their teachers in their building, if they were to actually do that. They could have, that Thursday, they could have gone that Thursday and done teacher conferences on that day, or they could have spread it out over several nights. They could have done a half a day on that day, and then done some during the night,
Sure.
or, it was up to.
But whatever the building decides, that's what has to be
Well,
done.
I did not
so-
dictate that.
No, I
No
know,
one
I know.
central
I'm
office
just,
did.
I'm
That
trying to
was
answer
principals
Mrs.
and their
Karan's
folks.
question about
Yeah.
how we ended up with a third day. So what they wanted is they wanted to keep the teacher work day. They wanted 2 days for fall break. So that's how we went from 2 days to 3 days.
How
there.
about the spring semester wish? What was parents' second semester parents' choice?
So, again, that was one that was kind of bifurcated into 2 different choices on moving it. So it was basically keep it as it is, or it was align it with the university breaks, or put it between the semesters. And I think it was 32, almost a third wanted to align with the university, 20%, in between the semesters, and I think the rest leave it where it was. But the decision not the decision, I think the committee decided at that point, we're going to go with, the Easter break for now, but what they wanted to do was look in the future to find a non-rotating week that they could take the whole week off. So once again, we're moving it to something that we didn't even offer in the survey, and we're lengthening it to 5 days, which is not what people wanted. So again, it's outside of, it's not really a compromise. I want to say real quick on the university thing, the last time we did this, and I'll admit, I was wrong on this. I really thought that there would be, surely, it's a number one employer, surely a majority of the parents, work at Tech or at Radford or whatever when you throw those in, because those 2 universities, they're major employers. Radford's never listed in the Montgomery County list because they're not in the county, but obviously they're right next door, and there's a lot of employees that work there. I think if they were listed, they'd probably make the number 2 or 3 employer in the region. But the issue there is, being an educational institution, we understand how hard it is for our teachers to take time off. But at least our teachers, they can do that from time to time. They can get substitutes especially for instructional staff, but even beyond instructional staff. Tech and Radford employ so many people that maybe don't have the freedom, within their role to take different weeks off because of the way things are structured there. It becomes very difficult. And what I got to thinking about from the last time that we did this, I think the number came out at 22% wanted to align. So I said, okay, it's a minority, we shouldn't do it. But I got to thinking about it, and at what point do you have a significant enough minority that you should at least try to do some accommodation? And I think what we did here's a double whammy on that kind of a thing. For those people, a lot of those people that work there, and again, I think the survey results bear that out, they cannot take that time off. So when they have spring break, they can't go on vacation or take time off with their family. Their kids have to be in school, or they have to pull their kids out. The double whammy is then we have a spring break later, and they have to work, and so then they have to find childcare and that kind of a thing. So that's where the double whammy comes in. And I think, it's more than just choice. This isn't just a preference. They just can't do it. And so I would like to see us do something. I'd like to see, what I tried to push the committee to do is, at what point is it significant enough that we should consider doing something? I mean, for a certain number, we had 60% of the teachers that wanted the fall break. We're doing that couple days for them. In this case, when you're talking about 20,000 people representing these families, 30, 20, let's say, a quarter to a third of your people, I mean, you're talking 5,000 to 6,000 people that you're affecting. At what point, I mean, I kept thinking back to something you said, Jamie, a long time ago about the, what happened when the Blacksburg High School collapsed and how people in Christiansburg opened, their arms to, at what point did we just tell those people, tough luck, it doesn't align, I want a longer break here. So I fought, 2 years ago, I was not in favor of increasing the spring break too much. We went from 2 days to 4.5 was proposed. I'd like to feel that I helped get rid of that half day, and now that half day is back. So, once again, we've gone from about 22% last time who wanted to align, and this time we're at a third. And I do wonder if part of that is that we've put pain on those people because of that double whammy. We've increased the length of the spring break that doesn't align. So I don't know, but I think when I look at the calendar, I think President's Day is a day that could be moved. We get so many days off in January and February because of snow, and by the time President's Day comes along, I have so many parents that are just, I can't believe that we schedule this day in here. That's one that could be moved to align, and I think if we eliminate, if we shorten spring break from 4.5 days to 3.5 days, which is only half a day off from what most people wanted, you could move that other day there, and now you've also shortened those breaks down to 2 or 3 days instead of having a long one. So anyway, that's my input.
Mr. Chewbacca, I apologize. That one that you questioned me on, you were absolutely right. I apologize. I was looking at the wrong slide.
No problem.
I will tell you this, other than the decisions they have to make for closing school, I would tell you that the calendar committee is the least desired committee for folks to join. I just say that to jest with you, that it is very difficult work, and it is so hard to please everyone and to, ensure that we are doing what is best for parents and students. And I can assure you the committee worked very hard to try and do that and to present this calendar to you.
And I don't think anybody doubts that you did.
Sure.
But like I said again, that's part of our job, is to have the conversation.
Oh, sure.
That's what we're here for. And,
Absolutely.
it's, I guess, if that's what the results show, that's what it shows. And so for me, somebody who sees the public all day long, every day, I'll send those people to the calendar committee to say, you need to share your thoughts, because just sharing them with me doesn't make a difference. So that's what I'll do from here on out.
Absolutely.
So, again, back to my point of what parents actually have access and understand why they need to respond to surveys that we send out, because they are busy just trying to survive and don't understand the importance of how this affects how they survive.
Yeah.
So maybe some more education around to our community as to, we send these out, we need your input to make the best decision for you and your child.
Yeah, and we're always welcome to take, I don't know who completed, but we're always want to try and reach as many individuals as we can. I think we have really good rates in terms of our families that are signed up. I know Brenda has some of that data, probably not with her, of in each school, how many parents are actually getting our Facebook or social medias. That really is, for us, one of the best ways to get to everyone, but we can always do a better job of reaching out and communicating and trying to get everyone, because that's the whole point of doing a survey, is making sure people's voices are heard.
Right, because quite frankly, sitting here and listening, that we need to take Virginia Tech into consideration when we're doing things, because Virginia Tech is this and Virginia Tech is that, that's irritating to me, and it's irritating to a lot of people in this community, that we're focusing our lives around what's happening on that campus. And not all of us are on that campus.
Hey, Brenda, how did we send it? What are the means that we sent this out about the calendar survey?
There you go. So we sent direct communication to parents, and that
What
was.
does that mean?
Peach jar.
No, school messenger, so
Yeah,
they got
Brenda.
my
Email.
voice in their ear and an email right in their inbox.
Okay.
Okay,
Direct communication to middle and high school students that came from a standardized email from principals to their schools. I don't have access to email students.
right.
So the principals sent it to their buildings. Direct communication to employees included 2 messages from me, and I also believe a message that each principal sent directly to their schools. And then, of course, the social media push. I don't have those numbers directly in front of me, but we did do it multiple times. In this specific case, it was the least utilized link that we had. Those direct communication links were the most utilized links.
So the way we sent it out is the way we sent out today's snow day.
Yeah.
And nobody showed up for school. So they got the message. Everybody in the school division got the message.
mean,
The
we are
only thing we didn't
reaching
do
out.
is put it on the news channel. And so I think we're doing a good job at getting the message out,
We're
guys.
definitely reaching out way more parents than we ever reached.
But I have no doubt in that
in
either.
the past.
But when you're talking 5,000 responses, and I'm putting the blame at the people not responding. But when the number is 30,000. If you've got 2 parents and a child, it's 30, I mean, I get it, I'm just saying you got 30,000, that's 10 more thousand than 20. But 30,000 and you've got 1,100 that are employees, that brings that total down to under 4,000 that's making the decision for 30,000 people, basically. Now, I'm not saying it's right, it's wrong. I'm just saying that that's a small, very small percentage of people that are making the decision of what. And I know we got to start somewhere. I get it. And I know we communicate better than I can't imagine. It's great how we do things, but that's why I say what I say. I will encourage those people because getting a text that says, hey, school's closed tomorrow, and you don't have to respond to is a big difference than I need you to answer 1 out of 5 questions here and go on, because if I get that during the day, I'm going to lay it down, I'm going to look at it and lay it down, go back to my haircut, go back to my current, then I don't even think about it. I get home, I'm making dinner, I'm cleaning up, and it's, oh, I got to go back and do it. And you just don't think about it. It's a huge difference.
I think if
But,
people,
you
if
know.
it means something to people, I
Well,
think they do.
sometimes it's not a matter of meaning something,
so.
it's
You
just
don't
an
understand
overlooking.
what it means.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's the piece I'm talking about. If you don't understand what it means, and comparing a snow day to a calendar survey, it's not even close. I see it snowing outside. I see it sleeting outside. I know I need to pay attention to this because of that. That's totally different than when we're asking for information and we're making these kinds of decisions.
My point was we sent it out the exact same way to everybody.
And I'm saying, even though you send it out the exact same way to everybody, depending on what it is that you're sending out, is how much attention they're gonna pay to
People,
it.
Okay, well, feel free to give us suggestions on how
I
we can
think-
make people listen. I would love that.
I think
Okay,
that-
maybe you can help us out with that.
You
That'd be
know,
great.
I can help you out with a lot of things, but what I'm saying is, we as a division need to look at all of our parents and how they are functioning in the world and how we need to best communicate with them, that it's important for us to get this information from you. So how do we do that? That's what I'm saying.
Okay, and I would love suggestions from anybody, and that's anyone in the audience.
I
or
think
here in
part of
school.
it is the
That'd be great.
education piece, not just the reaching out piece, because the parent has to know that.
That's what I just
that-
said, you
yeah,
need to educate.
Yeah, parent has to know that they can change the calendar with their input. I mean, I had kids in the school K through 12, 19 consecutive years, and I really didn't know that I can actually change the calendar of the school. I just took it granted that school calendar sets, school calendar follow.
that's
So, so I can see, I can see that education piece may need it, that you can have a saying, that you can change it. So I can see that we have
We
to,
couldn't change it back then.
well,
We
probably,
didn't have
that's,
a say.
here we go. Well, at least now we have a say. Regarding the Virginia Tech employees.
Can I just make one
Oh,
more
sorry.
comment? In response to Penny and Jamie's concerns, maybe we should consider looking at that 3-day, those specific 3 days, and spread them out, have a day here, a day there. I totally understand what they're saying, because at teaching students whose parents who struggle with a lot. And for students, too, to be out of school for that many days, for some of them, that means they're not going to get a decent meal for 5 days. So I think it is important that we think about the students and what the effect is, and do we really need, at least my understanding is the teachers want a day to get work done. It doesn't have to be 3 days in a row to get work done. It's a day here and a day there, I think would be helpful too. That's what they're looking for, is time, not necessarily consolidated around a weekend. But anyway, I think in that calendar we have now, if we could somehow look at that and spread it out, I think it could help maybe solve both people's
Well, and can I
groups'
ask a question?
issues.
If it's so hard and so horrendous for us to even consider changing something at this point, could we have looked at it earlier, or when it was in a less, not so concrete stage, that maybe we could have had some discussion? Because I feel like it's like taboo if you even mention changing anything at this point. And I get it, it's a lot of hard work and a lot of effort, but could we have maybe seen it before all that hard work, and, you know, before 20 or 200 hours went into it, maybe when you just basically got together and said, this is the things we're thinking about. What's people's ideas? What are you thinking? You know, I mean.
Well, you know, we have a calendar committee, and you know, I guess, you know, just thinking in terms of, we're trying to help the board out and get the input of the people, and, you know, and by doing, we did surveys, and then we came up with, instead of bringing you all the surveys and say, here are the surveys, now you guys figure it out. We have a committee to figure it out for you
But
based on those
that's
surveys.
not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just as a generalized rule before it's so concrete and so much work has been put into it. Could we see what's maybe on the table? You know, because like I said, this is an information piece, but I don't feel like it's an information piece. I feel like it's set in stone.
Well, it's
And,
not.
You know,
It's not
but,
set in stone.
but I feel like if we're going to change it, it's a hardship, and it shouldn't be that way.
Well, I do,
It shouldn't.
What do
be-
we
I-
change, what do you change what?
But I mean, I'm just saying, if the discussion piece, I mean, does anybody else feel that way, or is it just me? Maybe it's just me.
No, I feel that
Maybe
way
I should
too.
Shut up, but.
No, I feel that way too.
I mean, I feel like-
I'd like to know sooner, to be able to put a little bit of input from people who talk to me, or
I mean,
whatever reason they couldn't fill out the survey or whatever, to feel like we had some input in the calendar.
no, I'm just saying, like, tonight as an information piece, I don't feel like it's really an information piece. I feel like it's, okay, here's your choices, pick one.
Right.
It's not a matter of, well, wait a minute, could we, you know, look at this for another day, or, you know, I just feel like it's, if we did say that, it's looked upon as negatively, and I just don't think that's right. I think that's, we've gone past the let's talk about it.
the board used to have parameters. So the first time that I did the calendar survey, I brought forward what was called the board guidelines. And so we went over those guidelines, and I believe the discussion was, where did those guidelines come from? Are they in existence? And so we went away with them. So that might be, if you all set those parameters and said, these are our guidelines, that would help the committee. If you guys had a decision of, we don't want to take 2 days together at any point during the year, and then the committee could take what you guys established, this is what we are and are not allowed to do, that would probably give you all an opportunity to say, here's, here's what we want, here's what we don't, and this is what's a non-negotiable. These are the things we want you to find out. Going back to having those parameters might help. Not
Yes,
necessarily the
before,
same
that's kinda
ones,
how
but.
it was, so where it seemed
Yeah.
like it, I don't know, it just seemed like you had a little bit more information about, or not information, but discussion about the days that, we've changed around many different types of the way we were looking at the calendar before. It just doesn't seem like we get to do that now, and if we do talk about it, it's like I said, it's looked at as being a bad thing, and forgive me if that's the case, but I thought that's what we were doing.
Oh,
So,
sure, certainly.
I guess
Jamie,
it's that.
to be clear, I'm okay with making tweaks at this point because of some of the shortcomings that I saw. I probably agree more with Dr. Meyer. I can't remember if Annie said it too. That, we have a calendar committee, and any two of us can be on the calendar committee, and I'm happy to roll off of it and let somebody else do it. Probably some other people that are very happy if I would do that. But what I would like for any of us that serve on the committee to be there for is also to make sure that that public piece is, that input is being considered, and that we're making, the right compromises. In some cases, yes, what the employees want wins out from an instructional point of view. I got no qualms with that. Very few people do. So.
So,
It's not set in stone.
Yeah, I mean,
If you want to make
definitely.
changes, you go right ahead.
yeah, it concerns me that the perimeters that the board set up to try to help guide the process went away. And now we're sitting here for 2 hours going round and round about stuff that we didn't even know was happening, right? I appreciate our committees.
Sure.
I do. And for as long as I've been on the board, this one has been the one, when I see it come up, I'm like, oh, Lord, calendar.
Twitch a little bit.
Right, it's worse than budget. I used to think budget was the worst thing, now calendar is worse than budget. So, to your comments, going back to the board setting some perimeters, would probably help us not have this discussion.
And I think it would help the committee. If there were things that you felt strongly about, that would certainly give them a starting place.
All right, so again, I will emphasize, I'll bring this back for a vote. You have choices. You can accept or deny this one. You can choose one of the other two, or y'all can change what
Tweak
you want
this
to
one,
change.
yeah.
Feel free to do it,
Thank you.
And I
okay?
think from now forward, then we should sit down and set those parameters. On my tenure on board, I don't remember we have the parameters for calendar.
There.
It might be prior my time, before 2013.
It's another thing to be put on the retreat, maybe, to work
Yeah.
through what kind of things are we
We want.
liking as a whole? What
Because
do we,
it will help if we tell the calendar committee, no vacation should be more than 2 days. I'm just making up. But I mean, definitely then they can plan around, according to. I mean, the longest break right now is, besides the Christmas, is spring break, which is 4.5 days. So if we're going to break it anything less than that, we have to let the calendar committee know. So maybe a retreating to decide on that for the next time around.
Possibly put that on there.
And that would take half the day, and we only do 1 day, which I've had concerns
And-
about forever.
And, if we do that then I'll remind you again, students come 180 days regardless, and staff come 190. And it will all equal out to the same for every day, every reason. So, so thank you. Where are we? I don't know where we are.
I think next one is unfinished business. Any unfinished business, board members? Hearing none. How about a new business? Hearing none. Announcements and informations. We'll be attending the VSBA Richmond on January 13 and 14, and I was gonna also remind the Dialogue on Race Summit once again, Ms. Franklin, on January 25th.
And please register, so we can
Yeah,
make sure
so they
that
will
we
have a head count.
everything ready for you.
Any other announcements or information? Then it's upcoming school board meetings. You see the 21st and then we're ready to enter the closed session. May I have a motion to enter closed session to discuss 1 personnel matter and 10 student matters as authorized by Section 2.2-3711 of Code of Virginia?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are now in closed session.